Are you scared yet? They say this thing, it kills your immune system, attacks your lungs, makes it hard to breathe, and it's spreading. Spreading like wildfire, causing havoc. Your friends and family are gonna get it, if they don't already have it. It's tragic, I tell you, madness. Scientists say old people get it worse, but most get it eventually. They say this is new, but no. This has been around for centuries. Look at history, it's just a different name, a different strain. And now there's no way to contain it. It affects the rich, poor, young, old, the unknown, the famous. It's dangerous. Everyone's on edge, locked inside of their homes nervously. Borders are closed, countries declare a state of emergencies. Grocery stores are empty, nobody's praying in church. The world has gone to crap. No wonder toilet paper sold out first. The stock market crashed, thousands laid off work. Hand sanitizer is going for $1 million a squirt. You better not sneeze, cause no one's gonna say God bless you. They might even arrest you. I don't mean to stress you, but washing your hands obsessively in the restroom will not protect you. Friends, I'm not talking about coronavirus. Now this is a virus even more deadly. The F virus. You've seen it. It spreads every minute like an epidemic. It lives on surfaces, most commonly remote controls, TV screens, cellular phones. It makes you desperate. Doctors say every time you scroll down your feed, you get reinfected. It invades the brain, and when it mutates, it turns into hatred and blame. China did it, no Italy did, no Iran, no Spain. Oh, I didn't make it clear? The F virus, ladies and gentlemen, is fear. But don't be afraid. Despite what you hear or see on your TV, there is good news during this tragedy. To fight loneliness, people are performing concerts on their balconies. The UAE sent aid to Iran. Japan donated supplies to China for free. Written on them was a poem that said, "We are waves from the same sea." Listen to me, like every tragedy, we can let this destroy us, or we can use it to our benefit and repair relationships with our sisters and brothers, wipe away silly grudges, because when it's all said and done, all we ever really had in this world was each other. So yes, let's flatten the curve and expand our hearts. Let's social distance, boost our immune systems, be mindful of where we put our hands, but also where we put our attention. Be alert, not fearful, because the F virus is a pandemic easily transmitted. If you do contract it or exhibit symptoms, we recommend immediately dialing the hotline of a level-headed friend. If you are exposed through your TV, change the dang station. Decontaminate yourself through dance, laughter, and meditation. 2020 has been morbid. From Kobe to COVID, may we use these tragic moments to finally wake up to what's important. Right now, tell someone that you care for them. Yes, right now, tell them that you cherish them. If they are not in the same room, ring them up and tell them you will always be there for them. Because together is how we will rise above. The only vaccine for this F virus and every other virus is love.
You're listening to Barbell Logic, brought to you by Barbell Logic Online Coaching, where each week we take a systematic walk through strength training and the refining power of voluntary hardship. You're listening to the Barbell Logic Podcast. This is Matt Reynolds. I'm here. I invited my little brother on, Chris, again. And we wanted to talk a little bit today in this principle series about staying healthy during quarantine. At this point, really, most of us are in isolation. Those of you guys that heard my story on Thursday know that I tested positive for COVID-19. Actually, just a few hours after we recorded that podcast, my wife's test came back positive. So she's positive as well. And oddly enough, almost completely asymptomatic, not sick at all. And my kiddos seem to be negative. So how are you guys doing in isolation there outside of Boston?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing pretty well. So we pulled our kids out of school one day before the schools actually shut down. And part of that was I was just sort of doing the math.
Couple weeks
and
now,
figuring
somewhere there, right?
Yeah, it's actually been one full week. So that they closed the schools on Friday. That was the first day the kids wouldn't be going back. We pulled our kids out decided Wednesday night. Thursday they didn't go to school. And since then, we've just been hunkered down here at the house. We have literally not left the house, like, at all.
Sure. Yeah, us either, obviously. It's kind of interesting because for us, we are sort of what most people's lives look like right now in isolation or quarantine is sort of the way we live life every day. The difference that you have is that your kids typically go to school. And of course, the difference for us is that I'm homesick with the actual coronavirus. So it's been so there's some changes for everybody. I think if I were healthy, and I certainly have continued to take a turn for the better the last few days, so I feel quite a bit better. Then things would be a little more normal around here. They just don't feel normal. And some of that is just, my kids don't have it. So my kids are now shut up in their room. My wife laughed at me when the health department called and she tested positive. She was like, "You got the biggest smile on your face." I was like, "I get to move back to my bed." And I went and gave my wife a hug because I hadn't seen her in like a week. And, it wasn't good news for her, but I have a COVID friend now that I can suffer with. So, but we know that almost everybody on some level is, and probably entirely quarantined at this point. And if you're not yet, you will be soon. You probably should be, whether anybody has demanded you to be yet. And I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about what life looks like while in quarantine and sort of stuck in your house and how to be healthy and not how to necessarily be healthy and avoid the disease, which is certainly something I think that's on everybody's mind and forefront, but really how to be emotionally and mentally healthy in the midst of the chaos. Most families aren't used to being at home all the time together. So what are your days looking like right now?
Yeah, so we've done a couple things. I mean, we've done a pretty decent job of planning forward. So the first thing that we noticed, or that we knew was probably going to happen, was the tendency of every human being right now is to stare at their phones or TVs and eat junk food, like laying on the couch, trying to soak up every bit of information on what's happening, right? So
Sure.
It's just kind of freak out mode. And that's harder to do whenever you have your kids home and you're supposed to be schooling them as best you can, which is new for us. And so one thing that we knew we couldn't do was just sit around and stare at our phones and see what was going on, try to keep track of the numbers and read all the newest headlines and all that. However, at the same time, not doing that at all would both feel slightly irresponsible because as the parent of 3 children, we need to know what's going on. Sure. And make sure that we can sort of stay in the loop. So what we've done is we've actually this is kind of funny. We scheduled time to freak out. So every day we give ourselves a little time in the morning, a little time in the evening after the kids go down. And there's a little time in the afternoon after lunch as well that we'll just sort of scan the headlines and read things. And Jenny and I will talk back and forth about things we've discovered or found or read or whatever. And we call that our worry time. So we just sit there and worry because it feels like you need to, but doing it all day and many of the behaviors that can come along with that worry or to help people cope with the worry is where you can really get into some trouble with your own health. And one thing you really don't need right now, anybody, is to be less healthy going into what is probably going to be the beginning of a start to a large rise in the pandemic. You don't want to be less healthy. So
Sure.
Working on trying to make sure that we're both mentally prepared for that and also that our bodies are in good shape is a good idea.
Yeah. So for us, we, and of course it's been different with us being sick, but this is more about how we live life almost on a daily basis anyway, is we live on a schedule, similar to what you just said. I mean, we get up at the same time every day and we do the work we're supposed to do. The girls are doing web-based classrooms right now. So even though we homeschool, they're kind of part of a group that does things like science experiments and public speaking and stuff that's harder to do at home by yourself. So they're doing that today or the last couple of days, and that's been important for them. And then for us, it's just an issue of we've stayed away from fast food. We've stayed away for the most part from DoorDash and delivery services like that. And even though those services are certainly can be extremely beneficial during this time, like home cooked meals are good for us right now, and they provide some sort of solidarity for the family as well. And so just being on that schedule and doing the same thing that you guys have done, we've got our times to watch Netflix and veg, and we've got our times to like read Twitter and read all the news stories and freak out a little bit. But for the most part, it's kind of life as normal for us here, and that makes it feel good to me. I'll tell you one thing that's we're going to do actually here in about an hour is we're just going to do family chore time and work through the house and clean the house. The house it gets messier faster when everybody's home, and we've got a housekeeper who actually is sick herself, not actually with COVID. They thought that she might, and but she's kind of home ill, and of course we're in quarantine, so we can't have a housekeeper come over anyway. And so, making sure that the house is clean. And then the other thing is it's we're going into spring, and so like yesterday we opened up all the windows, we opened up all our shades are kind of always up anyway. We rarely have the window treatments in front of our window, and just got fresh air. And again, it's not really about the old wives' tale of does the fresh air actually make you healthier? It's more about the mental sort of thing it does. To breathe kind of fresh spring air just feels better and makes you feel like it's healthier. And especially when, for us, we've been in sort of sick quarantine for the last week or so. There's something about having the house clean and it smells clean, and there's like the windows are open and there's fresh air, and like it feels better that way. And so we've really focused on those things. I know for you as well, you guys have done a bunch of family workouts. So you're a block client. I coach you, but lately in your videos, as you submit them to me, like your kiddos are all in the videos. They're doing their body weight workouts. Your wife's doing the same thing. And what kind of role has that played for you guys?
It's been super helpful. I mean, it's always true that if you can exercise, that you're going to feel better. I mean, there's just incredible amounts of data on this. You mentally are better off if you're working out. It is difficult to get started. I actually think if you've missed a few workouts due to the chaos that's happening, I think part of it is your brain is going, who does voluntary hardship when we're under involuntary hardship?
Yeah, sure.
And if you can get over that hump, really, honestly, just once, then the rest of it is fairly easy, and it'll come more naturally to do. But I mean, we've noticed, first of all, I mean, you got little kids in the house. Our kids are elementary school age, all three of them, and they have got to get energy out. And so our workouts, as long as we just, you got to give a little in terms of, you can't do your hardcore workout with the kids, doing all the things that you're doing, but what you can do is have them doing something while you're doing the things you're doing. And I'm fortunate that I've got a gym in the basement. Some people don't, but if you're doing body weight stuff, your kids can do that kind of thing with you, and you can turn it into a family event.
Yeah. One of the things for us that was been very important, I mentioned this on the podcast Thursday, was that, we want to be able to provide that support and value to our clients in general. So we know we have a lot of clients that have been displaced. They can't work, they don't have a home gym, but that doesn't mean that they can't exercise. And so a lot of times in our sort of niche of the strength and conditioning community, we kind of poop on exercise, which it's about like, well, if you can't train, it's worthless. And that's not true at all. We've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast before, is that there's real value in exercising when training is unavailable. And so exercise all the time for the sake of exercise and never training when you should be training, that's not okay. But when you don't have a gym available, to be able to get in and continue with the habit of exercising, doing the body weight work, it's amazing how much it will help you, certainly mentally and emotionally, just the way you feel, but also I think it will really slow the detraining effect down for people who don't have access to barbells, to be able to go in and still do the air squats and the push-ups and the sit-ups and the jump squats and and whatever. And if they've got a kettlebell or a dumbbell or some bands, like we can make those things work as best as we can. And so that seems to be a big help. And then I saw that you guys pulled the trigger on a trampoline this past week.
Yeah. I mean, like the thing was, we were going to have to do something because we've got a house and a yard. I know I was thinking about what this would feel like to people who live in an apartment, or if they're, in a condo or something, and
Sure.
they don't have a yard. Man, that would be tough. I'm like you, we keep our windows, the shades pulled up on the windows, and if it's a nice day, we open up the windows, and it just feels like, okay, we're not quite so contained when it feels like that. But we went ahead and bought a trampoline so that the kids could jump around on the trampoline and burn energy that way. And I've been getting on the trampoline, which
they're fun, man. They're a blast.
They are fun. Yeah. And I mean, there's some joints and ligaments and muscles and stuff that I don't normally use from in the sort of jumping and chaos motions that I've been doing.
Yeah. And
that's all fun. But yeah, I mean, it's another example of a way that I'm just trying to stay active and keep my mind off of, the chaos that's ensuing out in the outside world.
Yeah. And then Rachel and I, we actually went for a walk yesterday it's really the first physical thing I've done in about 2 weeks since being sick. Is I went for a walk around the neighborhood. I'm not around anybody. And if there were people coming on the same side of the road, we just crossed the road to the other side and walked on the sidewalk on the other side of the road. And that was more for their protection than our protection, obviously. We weren't going to put a sign on our head saying that we were COVID positive, but we just stayed away and just walked around the block a couple times, and it makes a big difference. And so, it's interesting that we are people who need to have some control in our life. And certainly you can swing the pendulum too far that direction, and you can get to the point where you have problems with like OCD, where you have to control everything. But if you had OCD right now, and I know there are people that do out there, that it's a bad time to have OCD, because we're sort of in the midst of the chaos. And so to have some control in the midst of the chaos, I think is actually calming for us. And if we don't take that too far. So for us, and I think you've said the same for you, is that requires us to live on a schedule and to sort of plan our food and meals, what we're going to eat every day, and not just kind of live by the seat of our pants, and dedicate the times that we need to dedicate every day to work or school, to eating, to rest, to exercise and things that make us physically better, to reading for enjoyment, and not reading for freak out mode, but then also to schedule some of those times for the reading for the freak out mode. I've sort of lived on Twitter more than normal, because it's just interesting right now. It's more cutting edge than anything else, or reading the articles. And so Rachel and I do the same thing and share, but I think the big takeaway there is to put yourself on a schedule, maintain the same sleep schedule that you have normally maintained. We still do the early to bed, early to rise thing, and then get the exercise that you can, because you'll feel better. Do stuff with your family. And, we've talked about this. We talked about this Thursday. Like, there are parts of this that are certainly not all bad. Getting to spend more time with your family, getting to eat home cooked meals, sort of getting back to the basics of what matters. There's something that's been, my pastor was texting me the other day, and he said, "How's isolation going?" And I was like, "Great, actually. I love it." He's like, he got real sick like 6 months ago with the flu, like real bad, where he had to isolate himself for about 8 days. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't miss people at all when I was isolated for 8 days." I was like, "I know, it's for being an extrovert like I am, it's actually been surprisingly nice to just kind of hunker down and get work done and focus on the things that really matter." And so I miss the exercise. After all that, obviously I've been so sick that I haven't been able to do much. And so taking the walk around the neighborhood yesterday was kind of my first step. We'll do that again today. And then I'm hoping to get back into the gym and doing some really light stuff here in the next few days. So,
yeah, when you think about the nutrition side of it, it's, it can be a little easier actually in this time. One, you're probably not going out to eat much, if any.
Sure.
You're probably not, you don't have access to some of those superfluous things. The other thing is, if, we've been a little concerned that I think everybody's this way, that you have enough groceries, that you have the right things, all those kinds of things. I don't know if that's a valid concern or not, to be honest, but measuring out what you eat can also help calm some of those fears, and also fill that control void that you're looking to fill, because one thing you can control is the food you put in your mouth. And so it's a little easier to do that, I think, right now. But the other thing is, like you said, it's not all bad. Our kids, I don't know if anybody else has kids that waste things like milk, like pour them a big glass of milk and they're like pouring out half of it or all of it because they didn't drink any. We've been telling our kids, like, guys, we don't know if we're going to be able to consistently get milk. So, you're going to drink all your milk. We're going to pour you a little tiny bit. And it's funny, everybody in the family has gotten more into that routine. We may all end up behaving very much like our grandparents who lived through the Depression, but I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's wild. Have you talked to your kids much about the situation at hand?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're on the extreme end probably of where most parents are in terms of just telling our kids the completely honest truth about everything. So when we pulled them out of school, we told them why, we told them what was going on. I actually make my oldest son, Carter, read one of my newspaper articles each day. The physical newspaper is still delivered, which seems bizarre because by the time it gets to my driveway, it's old news. But he reads an article, circles words he doesn't know. Of course, all the articles right now are about the same thing. So they know what's going on. They understand the concept, and we talk about it as a family quite a bit.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We've been doing the same thing. We had of course, because I've been in isolation, I haven't got to talk to my kids as much as I wanted to. Yesterday, we just kind of spread out to the four corners of the living room and just kind of talked through everything, like what it looks like and it kind of thought about like what the next 2 to 4 weeks might look like at our house and talked about that. And then I'll tell you another fun thing that we've done that's maybe Carter could do this, your oldest could do this, but my kids are old enough to do this, is we've just been taking some time to do like a deep dive on whatever they want to do. So they tell me the subject that they're interested in. We're like, okay, because we want to facilitate this hunger of learning, right? What we did our very first episode on, that never-ending search for knowledge. And so if my kids are interested about whatever topic, okay, tell me the topic, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do the deep dive on Google and YouTube, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. You're going to tell me all the stuff you learned about whatever it is, and I don't care what it is right now. And so it's been interesting. And
we've done the same thing. We watched Charlotte's Web last night, and my kids were like, how do spiders make webs? Yep. And I was like, I can't tell you that I understand the entire dynamics of how spiders make webs. And so we dove super deep on how spiders make webs.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity to do some really strong deep dive. And the great thing is, from an educational standpoint for your kids, it can cross a lot of topical boundaries, because you can go over, biology and physics and math and all sorts of fascinating things that your kids wouldn't maybe necessarily have the same math, that wouldn't have the same perspective with in school. So it's
sure.
There are some good things that are in here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it teaches that love of learning for us. And so, one of my favorite things about the way we homeschool that you never think about when you go to public school is that everything is so broken apart by subject. And you don't realize that, like, all of that, wait a minute, Newton that you learn about in history has so much to do with math, it's ridiculous, right? And so there's like the history of math, but you never learn the history of math in public school. You learn math and you learn history. And so it's been interesting to do those deep dives on things that are quite interesting. Are you looking for your history of math book that you got back there?
I was actually. It's called The Story of Mathematics. And it was one of my favorite books, because I've always said if you could teach math to kids through history, it would anchor it better for them. For most of us, the way you're taught math is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then it gets lost by the time you take your next test. But if you learn, like, why did humans need to learn this thing, and what drove humans to need this thing over the course of the story of history, man, it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's great. So whether you have kids or not, take some time, do a deep dive. Think about some of those things that are interesting to you, and do some research, because now you've got the time to do it. So I hope you guys stay healthy out there. Listen, make good choices, make smart choices. Like, again, remember, my wife just tested positive for coronavirus. She's had it for God knows how long, and is completely asymptomatic. And so for those of you out there who are like, well, I don't feel sick, I don't have fever, neither does she, but she has coronavirus. So take care of yourself, protect yourself, stay away from people as much as possible. That's just good, smart choices to make. You're making a wise decision for you and your family, and for other people that you might put in harm's way, because you just don't know. And we'll hunker down and spend good time with your family, your spouse, good time in education and reading, doing those deep dives, and continue to do your training. Or if you don't have a home gym, get that exercise in. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And I think those are all pretty good words of wisdom. Cool. Thanks for being on the show again, man. We'll talk, I'm sure, again here in the next week or two. And we'll see you all tomorrow on Monday. See ya.
You asked us, how long can the coronavirus live on surfaces? And thanks to researchers at the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, UCLA, and Princeton University, we now know. But the answer can really vary depending on the type of surface. If you walk by someone infected with the coronavirus, it isn't going to be suspended in the air just from their breathing, but in a cough or a sneeze, the virus is shot into the air, and in that form, COVID-19 can last up to 3 hours, even after it falls to the ground. On plastic, it can live for 3 days. Same with stainless steel. And copper, 4 hours. How about that cardboard box? COVID-19 can last up to 1 day. So remember, keep your social distancing. Wash your hands and wipe down surfaces. Let's work together to help flatten the curve and focus on the facts, not fears.
Record. Okay, ladies, we are recording. I am so excited. Welcome to our Tuesday night webinar with Jennifer Kolari from Connected Parenting. Honestly, I'm so pumped to have this discussion because within TLC, I really want us to provide you with the resources in all areas of your life. And parenting, obviously, if you're a mom or soon to be mom, this is such a huge part and consumes everything. You know, men are very good at compartmentalizing, and women, everything just kind of blends together. So your personal, your family, your work, it all kind of becomes one. But the great thing about that is so many of the tools and techniques we're going to be talking about today, you can use in your professional life and your friendships and all around. So I really hope that whether you are a parent or not, you'll get a lot out of this. I'm not a mom, and I love this topic because it really helps me to learn more about myself, what kind of parent I would be, and also helps me better understand my parents and have a better relationship with them. So Jennifer, I'm gonna let you take it away, do your thing, and then we'll chat throughout.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you a little bit about me and my work. So I'm actually I'm a child and family therapist. I'm also a clinical social worker, and I've worked with families and kids maybe the last, I guess, probably almost 30 years now. And I love what I do. Oh, you froze for a second.
Oh.
I love what I do. I think kids are amazing and weird, and they can teach us so much about ourselves. This work actually started, I did my undergraduate degree in psychology, and I wanted to do something real and kind of work with real families and get out there and do really amazing work. And people who, if you're familiar with my work, you'll know this story, but it really is the origin. I started working with kids in a group home. And these were kids who were street kids. They had been sexually abused and physically abused. They were deeply traumatized. They were tough. They were scary. They were mean. And I had no idea what I was doing. And we were actually trained in this group home not to connect to these kids. We were taught to, don't turn your back on them, and don't give an inch, they'll take a mile. Like, be really tough on them, and if you're soft, they'll take advantage of you. And when it's time to put them to bed, it was just close the door and go downstairs and work on your logs. And it drove me crazy because some of these kids were 11. They were 11 to 16 years old. They were babies who'd been through horrid things, and I just could not follow that. I just couldn't. So, especially when it was bedtime, right? When the makeup came off and the teddy bears came out and the jammies came on, they turned back into kids, right? They turned back into babies, and they were afraid, and they were living in a place where people were paid to look after them, and they've been through awful things. So I would rub their backs, and I would sing them lullabies, and I would tell them bedtime stories, and they were so tough and so scary, but they just melted into this, and they just became vulnerable, and it actually broke my heart. Sometimes they would cry, sometimes I would cry, and it was just like, oh, it was so hard. And I kept thinking, where was I when I was that age? I was home in my house with my, parents at the end of the hallway, and my dog on my bed. And so it was a pretty powerful experience. But I noticed the next day, when I needed those kids to do the things that I needed them to do, they were much more likely to do it for me. So I really noticed the connection between compassion and empathy and love, really, and compliance. And it was very interesting because the other staff were all like, oh, she's a bleeding heart, this is going to backfire, they're going to walk all over her. But they didn't, actually. And I always tell this story, but I love it. There was a little girl who was really tough. We'd had meetings for weeks about this girl because she was very, very behavioral. And she'd been at the house about a week and a half, and she loved the bedtime routine. She didn't want to talk about it the next day, but she loved it. And she was actually moving to another group home. It was only a receiving home, so kids were only there for a few weeks before they were, placed in a more permanent home. And she was walking out to the car with her social worker, moving out, and she stopped on the sidewalk, and she came running back up, and she put her hands on my cheeks, and she said, I just want to remember this face. the face of someone who actually cared about me. So I never forgot that moment, because I knew that was the moment that I wanted to be a social worker. And I also knew that I wanted to understand compassion and empathy, the power of it, what it can do for you, why it's so hard for some of us to get there, why we get so angry so quickly, and why we think that anger is going to be the answer. And I really devoted the next 30 years to figuring this out, and then eventually coming up with the Connected Parenting program, which is really based on compassion and empathy, deep listening, and what happens biochemically. It's based on psychoneurobiology, so what happens in the brain and in the body when you're in a state of just deep understanding and listening. That's really medicine, powerful medicine. And then I teach parents how to use that, almost the same skills that a therapist would use, to create emotional safety. So when you have to come in and set limits and make rules and follow through and say what you mean and mean what you say, what you have to do, it just works better. It just works as a system the way it's supposed to. And the one thing I'll mention quickly, and then we can get it right into questions, is we think of ourselves as parents, but we're not. We're basically the frontal lobe, which is the part of the brain that regulates, inhibits, organizes, prioritizes, motivates, helps us make good decisions, takes perspective. That part of the brain isn't even finished growing till 25, maybe even in the 30s. So with especially our little ones, and teenagers are a different story, we can get to that. But they don't have much of a frontal lobe. Like, they have a little one, but it's not finished growing. So you're not actually parents, you're substitute frontal lobes. That's what you are. And your job is to inhibit, organize, prioritize, motivate. That's what your job is all day long. And that's why when parents say, I'm like, how come I have to say something 50,000 times? Why do I have to yell before my kids will listen to me? Because they're looking for that inhibition. They're looking for that feeling of that substitute frontal lobe. And it's a confusing time to parent. There's a lot of mixed messages. We can get into that in a minute, but I think parents are frustrated, and kids are different today. They're spicy, they're feisty, they're smart. They know way more than we did when they were kids. They have so much more access to information. The whole world moves faster. Little kids are growing up on devices. So they know a lot, and they're not afraid of adults. And as adults, we don't know what to do when our kids just say, no, make me, I don't care. It's really hard to know what to do in those situations. So that's what we'll talk about today, how to sort of dig into that and really give parents some amazing tools. It really is like a superpower. There's no other way to say it. It really is.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. When you say, are you going to get into this as well? When you say that we are their frontal lobe, what are effective ways to communicate and for us to not react when we're needing to repeat something a million times?
Right. And this is the whole thing. This is it, right? When you're parenting, you are constantly regulating your kids. They are constantly pushing back. So let me talk about the brain first, and we'll get into all of this.
Right.
So the way the brain works is you got your frontal lobe. We already talked about what the job of the frontal lobe is. And then you have your midbrain. And that's the part of the brain, the limbic brain, that freaks out. It gets mad. It gets anxious. It has temper tantrums. It yells. It gets, has panic attacks. That's the part of the brain that is reacting to the world instead of responding to the world. And there's a constant battle in everyone's brain between what's danger, what's scary, and what's not. And that's the frontal lobe's job, to kind of regulate that and make those decisions. And so we have to do that for ourselves, but we also have to do that with our kids and for our kids. So I guess the first thing to really understand is that it takes so long to grow a frontal lobe. And thank goodness we don't have to give birth to 25-year-olds, because that would be hideous. But what has to happen is we have to keep this very, very strong connection with our children so that we can help them grow for those many, many years in order to develop and grow their own frontal lobe. So human babies are basically born premature. They're basically a giant head with a tiny body. They can't sit up, they can't roll over, they can't feed themselves, they can't really do anything. They're completely dependent on us. I don't think there's any other animals that are as helpless as humans when we are born. And so the bond between the parent and the child is critical, because you have to think of childhood as like a very long fourth trimester, right? And that's where you're really staying connected with them so that they are oriented to you and they're looking to you for everything they need. But you're also creating enough safety for them so that they actually can grow up and grow a frontal lobe of their own. And then you become your own parent. That's kind of how it works. So the best way, and this is, we'll dive into this over the next hour, but I've developed this sort of cornerstone technique of connected parenting is something called the calm technique. And in this technique, what you're doing is you're speaking to anyone, not just your child, and it works on husbands, wives, mother-in-laws, bosses, anyone who needs to be deeply understood, anyone who needs to be de-escalated or diffused. This is where the superpower comes in. So it's a way to deeply listen. And when you do that, you're releasing beautiful reward chemicals into the brain. So the good news is we're all pretty good at this. It's basically a form of mirroring, and we're all really good at it with babies. Nobody would pick up a baby and go, "Hi, how are you?" Like, nobody does that. You pick up a baby and go, "Oh my goodness, look at that little face, and aren't you good?" And while you're doing that, oxytocin, opiates, and powerful, powerful reward chemicals are flooding the brain, calming the baby down, settling the baby down so the baby knows they're safe, so they can now take risks, explore, reach for things, crawl away from you, all of that stuff. Because that bond is so strong, they can continue on with brain development, which mostly happens out of utero, not in. So not only are you the substitute frontal lobe, but you're also the architect of your child's brain. So their experiences and the things that they learn from you and all of this stuff that we teach them is actually building their brain. So it sounds a little daunting, it does, but once you figure out how powerful that bond is and how powerful these techniques are, it really is a superpower. It's phenomenal. So do you want me to kind of get into that technique?
Awesome. I'm excited.
Okay. So I call it the calm technique. So there's 4 things that you are doing when you are deeply, deeply connecting and listening to another human being. First of all, this is all any of us ever want. Any fight you've ever had with anyone is because you just want to be heard. And when you're not heard, what do? You escalate. You create an escalation in the conversation so the person's actually going to get how upset you actually are. What ends up happening is that person's doing the same thing. So you just end up doing this. Your messages are basically just bouncing off of one another. And you keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And that's when we get reactive, and that's when we get upset or we yell. So in those moments, it's like you're both hitting the send button and nobody's listening to anybody. So we do this naturally with babies, right? We know how to just go, "Oh my goodness," so a baby, comes out of the bath, they're fussing, they're cold. You don't go, "Oh, I don't understand what your problem is. You've had a bath every night for 4 months. You're fine. And I've got to go watch my show." Nobody, you would look at a baby and go, "Oh my goodness, you're cold and your little lips are quivering and this towel feels kind of scratchy." And the baby doesn't know what you're saying, but the baby sees on your face a perfect representation of what they are feeling inside, which releases oxytocin, opiates, and very powerful reward chemicals that soothe the baby and calm the baby down so they can respond to their environment instead of react. And that happens over and over and over again. It's a very important part of brain development. But we kind of start to drop this. We lose this from our repertoire around the time that children acquire language. So once they can speak, we stop the mirroring. So, for the parents listening, you'll relate to this. When you have your 4-year-old and they won't get out of a bath, it's not, "Oh, you're having the best time. I understand." It's like, "Get out of the bath, please. Mommy's asked you 4 times. Look at your brother. He's already out of the bath. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. That's what we end up doing, right? We end up getting so upset that our children are not listening to us. We start escalating. Therefore, they're having the best time. Who wants to get out of a bath? Nobody. It's cold when you get out. It's miserable. It's a state change. Kids live in the now. They don't know it's time to go to bed. They don't care. They're having the best time. And so we end up conflicting. And what the child does is continuously send a message of how much they don't want to get out of the bath. And as a parent, we get so upset. "Why don't you listen just once? Just once. Can you do what mommy asked?" We're also thinking about all the 50,000 other things we have to do. We need our child to get out of the bath, and that charges the whole situation. So most of us do this naturally, but we start to drop it when our kids are speaking. And if you look at the difference between a parent that has an 18-month-old who's not talking versus an 18-month-old who's talking well, that parent is probably going to be doing a lot less mirroring. So many, many years ago, there was a shift in parenting, and it shifted from what's called a parent-centered model. Parents are here, kids are here. There's a hierarchy, to a child-centered model, where it's really about tuning into your child and what are their needs, and let's never say no, and let's negotiate, and let's make sure that we protect their self-esteem, and timeouts hurt their feelings, and all of that stuff, which was very well-meaning, But because we are the frontal lobe, we stopped being really good frontal lobes. And so as a therapist, I am now seeing an entire generation of kids who are anxious, who procrastinate, who are depressed, who do not emotionally regulate particularly well, who don't focus particularly well, all problems that happen when the frontal lobe is understimulated.
Wow.
So it's a really big issue, and kids are really suffering. I mean, lots of kids are doing fine, but the numbers of kids that are struggling with mental health issues, it's overwhelming, high schools and guidance departments. It's overwhelming universities. Kids are struggling. They're having a hard time, and parents know it. So all of this was very well-meaning, and it came from a place of really wanting to create good self-esteem and strength, but we kind of let go of the frontal lobe thing, and that's been a bit of a problem. So what connected parenting does, it helps you to really nurture, really be empathic, really connect with your child so that you have the emotional safety set up. So when you have to set limits, which you have to, they don't have a frontal lobe. That's why 6-year-olds don't have apartments. They don't know when to go to bed. They just punch someone when they want something. They'll eat a whole box of cookies. They don't care. They don't understand. So we have to be the frontal lobe. And because we're not doing the best job at that, not because we don't care, but because we've been given all of these incredibly mixed messages about how to parent, it's kind of flipped upside down. And if you even just watch media, watch what kids are watching, it's really, and first of all, I don't even watch TV anymore. Now it's all these quick little YouTube things, but the programs that are out there are, well, let's start this way. Think about the shows we watched when we were little. We watched shows where the adults were in charge, where there was chaos and the kids kind of got themselves in a mess, but it was the adult, the uncle, the parent, the principal, whoever it is, that helped the kids learn their lesson. And that's gone. Now a lot of programming is the kids know everything. They're all sarcastic. They're all super bright. The adults are all idiots. They're stupid, silly, ridiculous people who don't know anything, especially TV dads. Kids know everything. And there's this general sense that kids feel like there's nobody in charge. I should not be in charge. I'm a kid. And I work with kids all the time, and they tell me they do not want to be in charge. That's what escalating behavior is about. It's about getting someone to go, hey, cut it out, right? That's the difficulty.
So then if you do have a child, or you've adopted a child, or you're coming in as a step parent, and your child is exhibiting some of these symptoms of anxiety, and how do you, by using the CALM technique, and do you almost reparent your child, or are there other techniques that you can use also to help alleviate?
Question. We'll talk about that, because there is a little bit of that, especially, and you can do that with your own child if they're having behavioral issues, or if it's a blended family and you're really trying to build those connections and those relationships, then you do some of the reparenting. But I'll get to that. So let me finish the CALM technique, because that's a really excellent question. So the way that you do this is by, so I've called it the CALM technique. So the first letter is C. This is where you connect. This is where you put the phone down, where you use your face, your body, all of your energy to demonstrate to that person, whoever it is, that you really just want to get them. It's not about agreeing. It's not about convincing. It's not about changing their mind. At the beginning, it's literally, I just want to get you. I just want to know where you're coming from, which is what all of us want anyway. The next letter is A. So this is the affect matching. So this is where the look on your face really has to match the look on their face. It can't be exactly the same, because that's weird, but it's got to be close, right? So if your child is really angry because they were drawing something and it didn't work and they ripped it up, and I hate this, I hate my life, and this is the worst picture ever, and we come in and we're, oh honey, it's okay, you know what, we'll find. There's no match there, right? He's going to look at mom or dad and go, well, she doesn't get it at all. I've got to ramp this baby up so she actually understands how upset I actually am, right? So it's really important to get that match right. This is also where you take your agenda and you park it. I promise you get to bring it back, but not yet. You've got to create that space. You've got to create that safety first, so that you can come in later with the limit setting. Okay, so the agenda is get out of the bath, don't do that. What do you mean? Why did you rip that up? If that's your homework, whatever it is that you're upset about, you park it and you bring it back later. The next part is L. So this is where you are listening. This is where you're using your words. And you can paraphrase, you can summarize, you can clarify, or you can wonder out loud. Those are the 4 things that you can do. And the M stands for mirroring. So when you've done that, you've mirrored. So let me walk you through an example, because that's usually the best way to do it. So I just gave the example of a kid who was drawing something. They freaked out, they ripped it up. Let's say they worked on it for a really long time, and at the very end they ruined it, and they're devastated. So the kind of main thing you have to understand is you got to kind of put yourself in their shoes. What if you had just worked on an amazing, and this has happened to me, phenomenal PowerPoint, right? And it's amazing. It's the best thing you've ever done. You've spent hours and hours on it, and you hit something and it's gone. And you are freaking out. And your husband comes in and says, "Oh, honey, you know what? Don't worry about it. You can start again. You just do it from memory. You know what? Sometimes it's even better the second time." Is that going to work on you? No, you're going to freak out. You're going to try and convince that person how bad the situation actually is. And so often when we enter into a conflict or a situation where someone needs to be calmed down, we think we're going to calm them down by offering the solution or telling them what they should really be doing, or think on the bright side, or cheerleading, or whatever it is that we do. And we know that. We hate that. That doesn't work on us. We don't like that. You don't want to complain to your husband, "Oh, this just happened to me." And he goes, "Oh, well, I don't know why you just don't do this, this, and this. And we've talked about this before. And why don't you?" No, that's awful. We hate that. And that just usually makes us escalate. So the thing we have to remember is put ourselves in our children's shoes. They are 9 or however old they are. They've just done the best picture of their life and ruined it at the last minute. We know, because we're their frontal lobe, it's not the end of the world. They will learn from this. They will eventually make a better picture next time. That you learn the best things from mistakes, right? That you get yourself back up and you take it on again. Like all of that stuff we know, but they don't know that in that moment. And they don't want to hear that in that moment. So in that moment, you would use your face, your body to connect. You would look at them and they would say, "This is the best picture, and now it's ruined, and I'm never going to be able to draw anything that amazing again," right? And what we normally say is something like, "Honey, don't say that. Like, you could, like, I'll help you. Let's start again." "No, I don't want to start again." So see the escalation? Because I'm not meeting them where they are. So you take your agenda, which is, "Oh my gosh, is my kid going to be someone who flips out all the time? If they don't learn how to stick to something, they're never going to get anywhere in life." You have this moment as a parent where everything flashes before your eyes. You put that aside and you say, "You worked so hard on that. You were working on that 45 minutes ago. It was amazing." "I know, mommy." Now you're going to get nodding. Now you're going to get this, not right? When you're doing that, and you'll feel it. You will feel the oxytocin releasing. Oxytocin is a very powerful neurotransmitter. It's also a stress hormone. And basically, it calms the whole body down. It blocks cortisol. It increases neuroplasticity. It strengthens the immune system. It improves emotional regulation. It's free. You don't need a prescription. You never run out of it. You can't overdose on it. Like, there's just a billion reasons why learning to use this technique and learning to get this beautiful oxytocin blast for your children, and for you, by the way, because when you use this, it all bounces back and your brain gets the same benefits. So when you have that moment where I'm not going to judge you, I'm not going to think about all the things I have to do, I'm not going to freak out and think I'm a bad mother because my kid flips out every time they're drawing something, I'm just going to be present with you in this moment. That is hard to do when you're a parent. But you started at the beginning saying moms feel everything so intensely. It's happening to you when your child is freaking out. You want them to feel better. So the trap you get into is, "Can't you just feel better so I can feel better?" That's never going to work, right? That's never going to work. So you kind of have to be brave enough to visit your child in that space. Just sit with them. And the crazy part is it's literally 3 or 4 statements. He'll say, "Oh, I'm never going to draw another picture this good again. I hate my life." And you say, "Oh, totally you would feel that way, especially when you worked so hard on it. It was perfect. Then at the last minute, that scribble happened," or whatever it is. As you do that, 3 or 4 statements is all you need. You don't need to lie your child down and do a therapy session. It's literally 3 or 4 statements. The oxytocin starts flowing. You're now having an oxytocin-based response instead of a fight or flight adrenaline-based reaction. Now the child starts to calm down, and now you can have a conversation about learning and taking a break and let's try later and all the good stuff that you need to do. We'll talk about later what happens when they go into what I call a vortex, because sometimes kids can just flip out and they're just gone, and they're gone. They have that crazy look on their face, and their frontal lobe is just off, and what to do in those situations. But more often than not, I get parents all the time saying, I can't believe it. I just used it. It literally diffused the tantrum in seconds, and it'll work on adults. It's incredible. It's mind blowing. It literally is a superpower. It is very counterintuitive. It is the opposite of what your brain is going to tell you to do. You're going to feel like going, are you kidding me? Can't you just, that's what your brain's going to tell you to do. But you've got to be able to sit in that space where you can meet them there first. So you asked another question in your question, which is how do you calm down your own reactions? How do you deal with this? Because kids are very triggering. They are. And you might have just dealt with another situation 10 minutes before with your other kid. Like it's the end of the day and you're tired. So there's no easy answer. You have to keep your own frontal lobe working in order to be a good frontal lobe for your own children. You're going to have your own childhood triggers. It is going to take you to a place where you panic. The neatest thing about this is you can learn to do this. I won't say by rote because that's not right. You can learn the steps of this and how to do this in a very precise way, even though they may be emotionally triggering for you. And as you heal your child this way, you're going to heal yourself, right? And the best part is when you blow it, because you're going to blow it. Of course you're going to blow it. You're going to freak out. You're going to scream. You're going to say, I'm taking all your crayons. If you can't handle it, we're going to give them to a child who will actually appreciate them. You're going to do that. And then you get to go back. You can repair a mirror, right? You can go back and go, oh, remember yesterday when I freaked out and I grabbed all your crayons and you were just so upset about that picture you did and you were so upset about the way it turned out and I was yelling and screaming. That must have felt awful. And I thought about that all day. That's such a beautiful repair. So you get to blow it. You're going to blow it. I blow it. Everybody blows it. And the truth is, if you never yelled and never lost it, you'd mess your kids up anyway. Because they'd go to work one day at 30 and someone's going to yell at them and they're going to fall apart because they're not going to know what to do. So a real reaction, when you push and push and push or you overreact to things, you're going to make people who love you upset. That's just kind of the reality. So everybody should be working on being their best self, but life happens. Emotions happen. They're not the bad things that people make them out to be. So did you have a question?
No, I love that. I think that was really beautiful. I think you're going to cover the other stuff after too, because the only other question is part of that repair process. So part of what you were talking about before of the society we're living in now, where children are anxious and have these symptoms of the society that we're living in. What are different tools and techniques that we can use?
So this is such a good question, because that technique, that calm technique is the sort of flagship. That's the most important technique, and that is medicine. So as you use that technique regularly with your children, you are building emotional resilience. You are building connection. You are speeding up neuroplasticity. You are helping your kids learn better and learn faster. That itself, connection, is actually the antidote to addiction. Mm-hmm. And our kids today are more addicted, and we're more addicted to all kinds of things than we ever have been before. And so connection is the antidote to that. Mm-hmm. So the biggest answer is this needs to become, and the tricky part about this is that people hear this technique and they're like, oh, that sounds easy, I can do that. And then you go to do it and you're like, what? I don't know what to do. It's so hard. This is why we have training. This is why I teach parents how to do it. This is why we coach people to do it, because it's actually a therapy technique. You're not supposed to be able to hear it and just do it right away. But I will tell people that even the clumsiest initial attempts, if the intention is to try and to really understand, it's going to work. So if you start doing it and your kid's like, why are you saying everything that I'm saying? I just said that. You can say, because you know what? I just realized I don't listen enough to you. I tell you what to do all the time and I don't always listen, and clearly I still need to work on it. And then they won't know what to say, mm-hmm. right? So it's the intention. The other thing about the calm technique is it is the medicine. It truly is. Mm-hmm. The more you use it, it's like a layer of paint that just gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And you'll just see those shoulders going back, the chin coming up. You'll just see this resilience, this emotional organization. This will just heal them and strengthen them from the inside out. And you don't have to teach them how to do this. When you do this on them, they will intuitively, naturally do this with their peers. It's like a phenomenal social skill. They'll do it back to you. There were so many times when my kids would walk away and go, did you notice? And I'm like, oh, you're good. Because when you get really good at it, you shouldn't even notice it. It's so smooth. It's so real. It's so genuine that it shouldn't feel like a technique. So that's the medicine part. Well, the other part, which I'll get to, is the limit setting is also really important, because as children feel contained and they feel like you're in control, they don't have to go, they don't have to push those boundaries anymore. They can just mind their own business and be kids, right? So I'll give a really quick analogy, and then we'll kind of get back to the mirroring piece, because that's the real medicine. But let's say you were on an airplane and it was a turbulent, terrifying, horrifyingly scary flight, and the captain decides he's going to wander down the aisle. How's everybody doing? I could do 28,000 feet if you want. I could try going around the storm. What do you guys think? What are you going to say to him? Are you crazy? Go fly the plane. I'm a passenger. Why are you asking me that question? Go fly the plane, right? For the purpose of argument, if the cockpit door is open, they can't do that on planes anymore, but let's say it was, and the captain's in there screaming and yelling, why is this red button flashing? I don't understand why the control tower is not answering me, and they don't pay me enough for this job. Are you going to feel safe in that seat? And now we have to think about ourselves as parents. How do we look sometimes? Sometimes we're, honey, please get off the couch. Mommy needs you to get, please, can you get out of the bed? Please, mommy needs, nobody's going to do that. If the child is oppositional or strong-willed, that's a question, and I can say no to that, and no. Plus, I feel how much you want me to do it, so no, right? Or they're going to think, this person's not in charge. I'm in charge. I can do whatever I want. She keeps asking me if it's okay. I don't want to be in charge. I'm 6, right? The flip side is, if you're screaming and yelling and shrieking and, you know, getting hysterical with your kids, which we all do from time to time, you're also out of control. And that's also showing your child that nobody's flying this plane. I'm in the passenger seat and nobody's flying the plane. So that's where the frontal lobe piece comes in.
And one question too, what if you're watching this and as an adult, you're realizing that either through childhood trauma or the way you were brought up, your frontal lobe wasn't established and strengthened properly also. I feel like when you have a child, that may be more obvious.
Yes, absolutely. And that's true. And there's a lot of us as adults that struggle with that. We are constantly in struggle with our frontal lobe, whether it's eating too much, eating not enough, spending too much, not spending enough, freaking out, getting mad, getting anxious. All of those things are really important. And this is why there's such an important interaction with your child, so that when you are using this technique, you are also getting medicated. You are also getting oxytocin. You are getting all of the reward chemicals that you may have missed as a child. Your brain can repair itself at any age, right? So the biggest issue that all of us have is that we kind of go around in life trying to control all the conditions. And you can never control the conditions in your life. You can only control your emotional response to those conditions. And so as you practice with this, your kids, and as you give yourself permission to blow it sometimes, because you will, and now you have this wonderful way to repair, you are soothing and calming your own brain at the same time. That's the most incredible part of this whole, and you know what, I call it a technique. It's not really, it's more like a philosophy. It's more like a way of being. And the more you do it, it's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it. The better you get at it, the more you do it automatically. The more you do it automatically, the more it becomes part of who you are. And so you practice it all the time, on everyone, all the time, every day. And the more you get that feedback, where you get that oxytocin blast back, and you see the other person calming down before your eyes, the more you go, whoa, I really do have a superpower. And the more you begin to use that and regrow or develop new neural pathways in your own brain, right? And you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to forgive yourself. You do your best on whatever the best looks like that day, right? The other medicine, because you asked me about medicine, the other way to really do this, and we'll come back to the technique because the technique itself is complicated, is through what I call limbic bonding or baby play. This is where you get medicine, right? So when you have a child that's acting out, that's really, or any child that just pushes your boundaries and just makes you frustrated and you get upset and you yell, whatever it is, you want to make sure that every day, 10, 15 minutes a day, you are focused, looking in their eyes, rubbing noses, telling them how beautiful they are, telling them stories about when they're a baby, tickling them, just having a moment where they just feel like they are cherished, that they feel so deeply loved. You're going to get such an oxytocin blast between the two of you, and you can feel it. You can feel it, that's healing you as well. I'll disguise the details because I want to make sure that I'm always protecting people's privacy. But there was one client that really stands out in my mind when I think about this. There's a lovely woman, and she'd actually found out towards the end of right around the time that they do the ultrasound, so maybe around the 4th month of pregnancy, that the results came back, and the baby was, terribly, there were terrible medical issues, and it was not a viable pregnancy, and they were going to have to do a therapeutic abortion. And so right away, she started to disconnect and go through trauma and be incredibly upset about that. And then as she was heading down for the therapeutic abortion, this was also threatening her life as well, or they thought. They called her and said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. We've made a mistake. It's a medical error. We've confused the files. Your baby's fine." So she turns around with her husband. She goes home and obviously is relieved, but emotionally could not reconnect, because she kept thinking, like, is it another medical, like, they made this mistake, is there another mistake, how am I going to be able to do this? And really struggled through the rest of her pregnancy through a lot of anxiety. And the baby was healthy, born very, very healthy, little boy, and he was super bright, super gifted. Gifted kids are a whole other story. That's a whole other podcast. Highly sensitive, couldn't breastfeed, screamed through the night, couldn't be settled. Anxiety is an emotion that passes through the placenta. So he was born in cortisol soup, and they were a mess, an absolute mess. And I was working through with the mom on how to use the calm technique and how to connect with her child. And it was really interesting because this child had developed such an icky defense mechanism. Like, he was just icky. Like, if she went to hug him, he would squeeze her, he'd pinch her, he'd be inappropriate, he'd just do icky things that would make her go, ugh, why do you do that? And they would end up in this push pull, I love you, I hate you dance, which is very common when you have attachment issues. And he was so difficult. Anyway, one of the story that really stands out is when he was little, he was about maybe 18 months old, he would never sleep. And both parents were just completely fried and exhausted and sleep deprived. And there was one night, and we've all had ugly parent moments, where she went in and she picked him up and she just said, "Stop it, just stop it, stop." And she's bawling while she's doing this. And the child is terrified as she's doing this. And the child, and it's not normal for a child to remember this, but he's super bright. So he did have a memory of this event, and it came up in one of our sessions because I was also working with the child. So we did this amazing thing where I had the mom set up, he's now 5 or 6 by the time I'm working with him. I had her set up as much as she could in the little basement. There's a little bedroom in the basement. Put the crib back, put the rocking chair back, put as much stuff as you still have back. And you're going to play a game where he stands in the crib and he cries for you, and you go in and you do it differently. This goes back to your question about repairing and redoing. So she walked in the room and he was, crying, and they're role playing, but he's screaming, and she picks him up and she goes, "Come here, my darling. I know you're scared. You come with mama." And she pulls him into the rocking chair, and they both wept. And they did this over and over and over again for a few days. And it was so repairing. It was so powerful. It was so healing. And that really began this change in this child, who, by the way, now is in university and awesome and doing fantastically well. And the mother's doing fantastically well. So that's how powerful this is. When I say medicine, I'm not kidding. Next to food and water, this is the most important thing that you can give your child. So that baby play where you're rubbing noses and you're tickling is medicine. And you're getting healed there too. And I always say to parents, because sometimes they'll go, "Oh, I'm really mad at this kid. Like, how many minutes do I have to do it for? Like, really?" And I always say, the child that you least feel like doing this with is the child that needs it the most. So if your first instinct is, "Oh, really? You gotta get the Academy Award. You just gotta go in there and you have to do it." That really tells me how frayed that bond actually is, not because you don't love your child, but because when you have a frustrating, challenging child, it frays the bond, it frays your nerves, and they're smart enough to know that they are pretty icky sometimes, and they know that you love them, but they don't feel very lovable sometimes. And the reason is they're not sometimes. Sometimes they're just not. And it can take you to the darkest places of your soul as a parent. And I work with so many parents who are literally waking up with a pit in their stomach, worrying about their child, feeling sick about how they parented the day before, wanting to do things differently, but they keep getting stuck in this rut where their child is just pulling them back into this negative dynamic. And even if it's just shades of this, let's get on this. Let's, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, if you were driving on the highway and your gas light came on, you wouldn't stick a happy face sticker on it and go, oh, well, it'll be fine. But we do that all the time as parents. Like, oh, it's a stage. Oh, I don't need to do anything. It'll probably get better on its own. Why? Just pull over and get gas. Like, really deal with this now. No matter what age your child is, it will never be easier than now. Problems tend to get worse over time, not better. And even if you don't have any problems with your kid, this is brain food. This is emotional nutrition. Why would you not give them every possible neurological edge that you could possibly give them? So the baby play is delicious. It is medicine, and if you did that, if you ignored everything else I'm telling you, and you just did that, you would see a change in your child's behavior, hands down.
Very cool. I love that. Ladies, if you're here, do you have any other questions? Is this technique resonating with you? Anna, Amy, any other ladies that are on? Feel free to pop in the chat box or say something. Oh, I saw someone unmute. Anna?
Hi, I'll speak. I'm following along because I too personally suffer from my own depression and anxiety, and so this is interesting to kind of, Vanessa, you had talked originally about kind of learning about how your parents did things, or so it's allowing me to reflect on my own kind of upbringing and what I've learned, but also then how I can shift that and talk differently to myself when I'm going through those situations and being hijacked and with my own brain, but then also in how to talk to anyone going through that. So it's interesting. I'm waiting for the mirror technique, I guess, at the end, the last bit.
Yep, fantastic. And you raised something so important, Anna, which is that for this technique to truly work, you have to use the same calm technique on yourself. You must be compassionate and loving to yourself. If you're going to be your own parent, then why would you be a mean parent to yourself, right? You have to find a place where you do the same thing with yourself. When you're getting angry and saying, "You idiot, what kind of parent are you? Why would you do that? Or you know better than this, or all the books you've read, you shouldn't behave this way." Really kind of pain, and even emotional pain, is information. It's information. And and emotions, I won't even say negative, what would have been called negative emotions, anxiety, depression, frustration, anger. Emotions get such a bad rap. They are information. That is how our body talks to us. And trying to shove them away or say we're broken somehow because we have them, we're messing up our GPS system. Emotions are our emotional GPS system. They're telling us when we are too far from the best version of ourselves, right? So when we're nasty to ourselves, and we're not mirroring to ourselves, we're going to throw our GPS way off. So it really is important to have that self-compassion and to be able to do a repair. So even if you have had a terrible moment, you beat yourself up, which mothers do to themselves all the time, and people do it to themselves all the time, go back and mirror to yourself. You were just feeling awful, and you were feeling really scared, and you were feeling threatened, or you were feeling shame. And that's an awful way to feel, and that's information. And kind of sit in that for a second before you move on. I think looking at emotions as a GPS system, it's how our body helps us figure out how close we are to what we want to be doing and how far we are from what we need to be doing is really, really important. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about yelling. Very popular parenting technique, yelling. But it really, it's not that effective. And we know that because anyone who's a parent or anyone who's a human, there's no way you can think of a time where someone has yelled at you, screamed at you, reprimanded you, bawled you out, and you've gone, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. That was perfect. That's what I needed. Thank you. Like, would anyone ever do that ever? No, because no, that would never work. All that does is set your emotional GPS system off. So you start becoming anxious, you start feeling threatened, and then you start reacting instead of responding. And so when we yell at our kids, we sometimes think that they feel things differently because they're children, but they don't. They feel exactly the way we feel it right now. And when you yell, basically you're just reacting instead of responding to your child. And that's when so many moms will say to me, like, I was such a nice person before I had kids. And now I'm just yelling all the time. I don't like who I am anymore. I don't want to be. This is not what I signed up for. And yelling will do that to you. And it just keeps you in that loop, in that vibrating, angry state. And here's a little bit of a tip. When you're angry at another person and what's coming out of your mouth feels fantastic, that's how you know it's wrong. It should feel stuck. It should feel like, oh, I'm really getting angry. And you should feel yourself pushing it back down. That's how you know that your frontal lobe is working. That's how you know your frontal lobe is online. It hasn't gone offline yet. When you're screaming and you're yelling or you're shouting or going off on someone, what you're doing in that moment is you're basically just limbic. You're basically just a giant amygdala. It's the primitive limbic survival part of the brain that is reacting. And you kind of have to remember, in any conflict, you will have a limbic reaction first. We like to think of ourselves as thinking beings and feeling beings, but we're actually the opposite. We react first just to make sure it's not too dangerous. And then it goes up to the frontal lobe, and then we can calm ourselves down. So our first reaction, whether it's a sibling or our husband or a boss or our own children, is usually a limbic reaction. It's usually survival, primitive reaction. And if you just calm down and you relax your tongue in the bottom of your mouth, if you just let your tongue go soft, and you change your breathing and you relax your jaw and your shoulder, your stomach should let go. Right away, you're telling your brain that you're not actually in physical danger. You're not actually in a situation where you could be, attacked or chased or killed or whatever it is. That is a way to keep your frontal lobe back on. And that'll keep you responding to your children instead of reacting to your children. So thank you. I really love what you just said about the self-love, though. That's really important. That's really important.
Yeah, I love this. This is so beautiful. I feel like we could talk forever. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, go ahead. I'm excited to hear about this mirror technique.
Okay, so let's go through some examples. So I'm only seeing myself on the screen. Can we flip it somehow so I can see you?
Yeah. Can you?
I'm going to need you for this.
Can you see me now?
Nope.
Okay. Can you, in the top right-hand corner, you can change your view.
Okay. That's okay. Okay. So I'm going to need you for this.
Okay,
so
I'm ready.
Would be really fun is we can kind of do a role play.
Okay.
Right? This is something you have to sort of experience. You have to see it. So I can give you the scenario if you want, or you can come up with this.
Go for it. You can give me the scenario.
So let's do a fun one. Let's say you're a teenage girl and you have worked really hard on your hair. Okay. And when you're a teenager, you think so channel your inner 14-year-old. Okay. You remember what she was like. Mm-hmm. You think everybody's looking at you. You're just constantly in a state of embarrassment. You think, that everyone's going to notice every little hair that's out of place. You are late and your mom's yelling at you, and we're going to role play this. So the first way we're going to do it is I'm not going to use the mirroring technique. I'm not going to use the calm technique. I'm going to be a typical mom who's just in a hurry and we got to get out the door, and you just dig in and be the best teenager you can channel. Okay.
Okay.
So you're already mad, like you've been trying to get your hair to go the way you want it to, and it's not cooperating, and you're just starting to feel awful and ugly, and that people are going to make fun of you, or whatever your biggest fear is as a 13-year-old or 14-year-old. And I'm coming upstairs getting upset with you. So let's just jump in, and the second time we do it, I'm going to mirror and want you to feel the difference, and then the people who are watching will also feel the difference.
Right.
So I would say, honey, what are you doing? I woke you up 45 minutes ago. Let's go. You've got to get downstairs and have your breakfast. Come on.
I'm doing my hair, Mom.
Okay. You've had 45 minutes to do your hair. It's fine. Your hair looks fine. Let's go. Come down the stairs now, please. Hurry up.
It's not fine. I don't want it like this. I need more time.
You don't have more time, honey. You don't have more time. We've got to get in the car now. Put a hat on or something. Let's go.
No, I don't care. I'm going to be late for school.
You can't be late for school. Your brothers and sisters are in the car. They don't need to be late for school. You need to wake up like an hour and a half earlier if you have this much trouble with your hair. Put it in a bun. And
I don't care, Mom. I don't care. I'm going to call an Uber.
You're not calling an Uber, okay? That's expensive. Just get in the car.
No, Mom. No. Just give me 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
Oh, you don't have 5 more minutes. So anything happening here that's motivating you?
No, you just want to keep fighting.
You want to keep fighting. So absolutely. So the experience that you're having is, I don't get you. I'm not listening to you in the slightest. You've asked me for 5 more minutes. You've offered a couple of solutions. I'm not even listening to you. And you're escalating, not de-escalating, correct? Okay. So let's try this again. Okay. Channel your inner 14-year-old, do your best. Okay. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to mirror this time. And I'm going to use the calm technique. So you're looking for me to clarify, to summarize, to wonder out loud. And I'm going to do all those things and I'll break it down for you.
Okay.
I would say, I'd probably come up and say, okay, sweetie, you know what? Is your hair not cooperating today? You said,
no, Mom, I've been working on this and it's not right. My hair is a disaster today.
I'm sorry, honey. You've been working so hard at it. And some days your hair works and sometimes it just decides.
I know, but today is really important, Mom.
And you really feel like this has to be right for you to feel comfortable and confident at school?
Yeah, I just need a little bit more time. I'm not ready. I can't go to school like this.
So, you know what? I get it. Because you feel like and what part of your hair isn't, like, what is not working about it?
It just isn't the right, shape. It's all frizzy and it's not working and it just doesn't look good.
You have a vision in your head of how you want your hair to look, and this is not it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you and I feel like you look beautiful, but I'm your daughter, so I probably
Mom, you're always going to say that.
I know, it's true. And I don't see what you see, but you see it. And that's the important thing. When you look in the mirror, you see that the shape isn't right, and there's no way you feel like you go to school like this. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I want you to really think about this and see if you can just sort of live with it, or get it to at least a point where you feel like you can leave the house and not feel really horrible. Can I check back on you in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, that would be good. I just need some more time.
Okay, sweetie. And then when it's time to go, so now let's say it's time to go. So think how you would feel after that. And I would say, you know what? How you doing?
Not good. I still need a little bit more time.
Poor. I feel terrible for you because you spent so much time on it. Okay, here's what we're going to have to do. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to trust you that somehow you're going to follow me into the car and you've got the inner strength. I believe in you. I know that you can do this because I also know that you've gone to school on other days when you've hated your hair. So I'm going to head to the car now and I'm going to trust you that you're going to be behind me. Okay? I'm getting in the car right now.
I don't know.
I'm going to go get in the car. You make your way down. So do you see I dropped the rope there? Mm-hmm. So you still might not get in the car. If it's a real vortex, you might not. But how did the second one go?
Definitely much better. I definitely felt like you were listening to me. You understood me. Like I wasn't fighting you. I wasn't trying to win. It was just like we were in this situation and like you were my friend and you were with me in that.
Yep. And then the second time when I came back and I had to put the pressure on, what I did was I gave you a message of confidence. I believe in you. I know you've gotten through this before. I know this feels huge to you, but I'm going to trust that you're going to be in the car. And for most kids, I'm not joking, like most kids, I would say 95% of the time, go down the stairs. Don't stand there waiting for her to come. Go down the stairs, get in the car. They will come. And when they do, don't go, oh, you came. See, you did it. Don't do that, because then they'll never get in the car again. Mm-hmm. Don't say a word. Don't say anything about her hair. Don't continue the discussion. Just act normal. And then drop her off, right? Sometimes we have a parade and we make such a big deal and teenagers are already so embarrassed. In the small amount of time that a child wouldn't get in the car, and honestly, most of them do, there is a small fraction of kids that would not, but most actually do want to get to school. They don't want to push the boundary of not going. They do want to see their friends. They don't want to find out what happens if they don't go. So they would stomp down the stairs. Like probably in this scenario, you would come stomping down the stairs, grab your bag, slam the door and say, don't talk to me. Like that's what a lot of teenagers would do, right? And then don't get into the, you know what, I was really nice to you and you don't have to be rude to me. I'm not just, you're not going to win in that situation. You can keep mirroring if you want, or just let them put their headphones on and just later you can go back and revisit. So in that scenario, I clarified what isn't working about your hair? Like what was happening? And then you were able to tell me. I could wonder out loud, which was like wondering how you're going to feel when you go to school, when you feel like your hair is like, looks, you know, exact opposite of how you want it to look. I can paraphrase. So I forget some of the things you were saying, but no, it looks terrible. It doesn't look the way I want to at all. Oh, so it's just not even close to the way you want it to look. I don't say the exact same thing because that's kind of weird, but I say a variation of what you just said. And I can summarize, which I don't think I did in this one, but I could say, you know, oh, maybe I did, that sometimes your hair works out. And then sometimes there's other days where it just doesn't. This is not the first time this happened to you. But you see how I'm borrowing the urgency here? I'm with you here. Instead of fighting you here, I'm with you here. So a lot of parents say to me, oh, I don't have time to do that. That's a lot of work. I don't have time to do that. My answer is you don't have time not to. How was that going to keep going the first time? I wasn't going to get you in that car. That was going to go on and on and on until I left her there screaming, or she finally did get in the car and we were mad at each other. Like that was ugly and it wasn't going to go anywhere. Right. And obviously we're human. There will be moments where a parent just loses it. This is ridiculous. Like you're going to lose it. And then you go back and you repair and you do everything I just did later. You know what? You're so careful about how you want your hair to look, and you have such a strong idea of the look that you want it to have, and it just wouldn't work this morning, and I didn't care at all. I just yelled at you to get in the car. Even there, you can feel what's happening, right? So even though this is a role play, and you are not 13, and your hair looks fabulous, by the way, your mirror neuron cells in your brain can't tell the difference. So could you feel the oxytocin?
Totally. Yeah.
That's the medicine. That's the medicine. And so the point at which parents are going to struggle the most with this is when they're mad, is when they're frustrated, is when they're limbic or their own frontal lobe has shut off, or it's triggering childhood issues, which is going to happen. But the repair is the magic, right? That's where you can always go back and repair. And so in those moments, you're not going to do your best mirroring. So I don't want people to go, oh, this is great. I can't wait for my child to be upset. I'm going to use it. No, you can use it when they're happy, when they're telling you about a video game, when they're complaining about a supply teacher. You know, we love to have these teaching moments. We're the worst supply teacher today. She was so mean. What's the response we almost always give? Well, honey, you know, it gives you time to have different kinds of teachers and you can learn a lot and you only have her for a couple of days. We go into cheerleading mode, which makes the kid go, no, she really is so mean, right? And then we get upset that our children are not valuing and appreciating our parenting moment. But we come in with that too soon. You got to set the stage first. So you got to mirror and you got to say, what do you mean? Like, what did she do? She what? You don't have, it's not agreeing. It's getting. You can actually come back and say all the stuff I just said. You know, you're going to have different teachers and it teaches your brain ways to handle different adults. But you got to mirror first. You have to connect before you correct. Really, really important.
Yeah, that's amazing. Even just for friendships and relationships, always. That's
absolutely.
Yeah. And when you go back to repair, how much time would you recommend to leave in between? Like, how do you know when you're ready to go back and have that conversation?
That's a really good question. When you can go back and really feel your own frontal lobe, when you can actually feel your ability to go right in there and see it from the other person's perspective, whoever it is, that's when you're ready. And it's good to know yourself, right? And often it can, if you don't get the response right away, it can send you right back into fight or flight and you can feel rejected or feel hurt. Here's a couple of tips that can really help you too, because this technique takes practice. So number one, practice it on everybody. The lady at Starbucks, the person you think took your spot in the parking lot, like just step up and just do it and watch what happens. Watch the power that comes back. Watch the the amazing things that will happen to you when you approach the world this way is astonishing. And they're healing, not just for the person you're talking to, but for yourself. The second is to try and keep your frontal lobe on. So there was the breathing technique I just taught, dropping your shoulders, relaxing your stomach. Having a thought in your head, like your child screaming, yelling about the drawing, if we go back to that, and they've ripped it up, or the daughter with the hair. If you're thinking in your head, oh, she's so disrespectful and this is so ridiculous, and what a privileged child that she's just worrying about her stupid hair when there's children in the world who, are walking to school and getting their water, and that's kind of where we go. Or she's flipping out about her hair, how's she going to have any skills to handle the future? Park all that and just think in your head. You literally in your head, you say, I'm sorry, you're in so much pain and you don't know what else to do. Because even though that looks ridiculous to us, that 13-year-old, she is in pain. She is in pain because she is feeling vulnerable. She is feeling afraid. She's feeling like if her hair is in a certain way, that she's going to be judged. She's going to be laughed at. She's going to be bullied or picked on. You have no idea what's going on for her at school. And even if nothing is, social media, the self-marketing, the pressure on young people to look a certain way is astounding. We had it when we were kids. It is multiplied infinitely now. And how mean and vicious kids are to each other online, you have no idea the kind of texts that are flying back and forth between that child and her friend, right? So that's what's going on. So you say to yourself, I'm sorry. Don't say it out loud. I'm sorry you're in so much pain and you don't know what else to do. Just keep saying that over and over again in your head. As your child can just be that anchor, you just kind of be that rock while the wind is blowing at you. You keep saying that over and over again, and do the mirroring. That will calm you down. That will get you into a place where you can actually do that calm technique, which you will have been practicing. So hopefully it's coming sooner or quicker to you. And watch the change. Watch the change in your daughter. Watch the change in your son. If you're a step parent, developing relationships with your stepkids, just mirror. There's two types of parenting. There's soft parenting and hard parenting. And they both come together. Soft parenting is connecting, baby play, finding out stories about them when they were little, going through the baby books, all of that wonderful stuff. And then there's the hard parenting. Go to bed, brush your teeth. When you're entering into a parenting role as a step parent, you don't jump into the hard parenting stuff right away. You earn that through the soft parenting, through the connection, through the building of that relationship. You sort of demonstrate to your child that when you're upset, they're upset, you're someone that they'll actually be able to feel listened to and heard and not parented and judged. And it's not about being their best friend. It's not about agreeing. It's about getting. And that's all people ever want. They don't even want you to agree if you don't agree. They just want you to get them. And then you'll earn your way back into doing that harder parenting. And it will be so much more well received because it will be coming from a place of love, right? Of a demonstration of consistent listening and understanding and love. And that's when parenting gets easier. So you asked me at the beginning, like, how do you, once you've been continuously doing this stuff, when you actually go to hard parent them, they're like, fine, instead of flipping out. And you'll see fewer meltdowns. They won't last as long. They'll recover much faster. And then eventually over time, you'll see a reduction in the intensity. And this all sounds lovely and it sounds easy, but it's hard. Like, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah. I think acknowledging that it is hard and it takes work, you're one step closer because then you're ready to put in that work.
Yeah. And the best things always take work. Mm-hmm. If somebody tells you like something is an easy peasy, super quick fix, I would wonder about that. Like, usually the best things take mastery and commitment. And the thing about this technique is even your clumsy attempts at the beginning will work. They're better than not doing it, for sure. And I would certainly say that there'll never be an easier time than now to invest in these techniques, but they do take practice. And that's why we coach parents and we actually really work with parents. But it's astounding. Like, I've had so many families where their child has literally been turned around in a matter of weeks. Like, kids who were given quite a serious prognosis, like oppositional defiant disorder and major behavioral issues and even anxiety. Like, this is a phenomenal way to work with your child when they're anxious, and it also helps your anxiety as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you honestly so much for sharing. I think will change so many relationships, especially these women that are on listening now. And even if some men, if you're watching, it works for men too. I do want to be cautious of time. So is there anything else you wanted to go over before we finish up or go into some last
maybe really, really quickly, I want to just say something quickly about consequences, because I don't want people to think that connected parenting is only about the soft stuff. Equally, the other side is consequences. Consequences need to be natural consequences whenever possible. They need to be pre-agreed upon. If you continue with that behavior, please understand you will be going into a timeout, or you will be losing 15 minutes of your screens or your phone for 24 hours or whatever it is. Don't take things away for a month. Take it away for 24 hours and then they get it back. If they repeat that same behavior, they lose it again. They may still lose it for a month, but at least this way it's been a contract every time. There's so much, I mean, there's no way to even touch all of this, but when you do give consequences, we tend to give them when we're mad. That's it. Now you're not going to go trick-or-treating, or canceling your birthday, or we're not going to Florida. Or if you've been saving your money to go on a trip to Florida, you're not going to not go to Florida, and your kids know it. So don't put out these ridiculous big consequences that you've said in anger. It's much better to say to your children, there is going to be a consequence. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'm going to go think about it, and I'm going to come up with a consequence that actually makes sense, that's fair, and then come back an hour later and give the consequence. First of all, they'll be sitting there for an hour nervous. What you're going to give me? But you'll come up with something that's much more reasonable, right? Because when we do like really kind of big sweeping consequences, we usually end up going back on them. And we end up going back on them. Our kids feel like no one's flying a plane. They're like, great, she doesn't mean what she says. Dad says it, but he doesn't mean it. So I don't know who's in charge here. I guess I am. And then they keep pushing and pushing and pushing those boundaries. So that would be kind of the other piece that I didn't really get to talk to about much today, but that's huge.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more and see if we can come back and do some more chats, because there is so much to talk about, consequences, all that jazz, social media, how to, even in the beginning of the talk, you had mentioned that now is some of the most difficult times ever to parent a child. So we can go a little bit more into that later of, what makes that so difficult. And if you ladies want more resources, I will email, and Can also put all of her information, if you're watching later, in the description of the video below. And you can go to connectedparenting.com. You can talk a little bit more about that too, Jennifer, your 6 program and everything, if they want to see if it's a good fit for them.
Sure. So connected parenting, I mean, there's a bunch of us. I've trained a number of therapists in this technique. And because it often gets confused with active listening, that's when you're saying things like, I understand, that must be really frustrating, or I'm hearing that. And there's nothing wrong with that technique, but because it has observational statements in it, kind of makes the person feel like I call it the customer service response. I understand, ma'am, that must be very frustrating, but there's a lilt, there's a song, there's a rhythm in your voice that lets the person know you're about to say but, right? So the con technique is actually tricky. So there's a team of us, and we work with clients from all over the world. We have a whole online thing. And then we have, which I'm really proud of, I'm really excited about actually, because we changed so many lives that I've been trying to think of a way to get this message out to as many people as possible, especially people who can't necessarily afford to see a therapist privately every week. So I've created an online 6-week course, which feels like this. It feels like I'm right in front of you. And I take parents through every single step of the technique, of the containment, dealing with homework, meltdown, social media, sibling issues, picky, you name it, whatever it is, it's in that course. And it really kind of loads parents up with a fantastic toolbox and with a lot of examples, a lot of role playing, really going deep into the mirroring technique, which is harder than it looks.
Yeah.
It takes some practice.
Yeah, you ladies will have to let us know, practice the mirror technique, and then let us know how it goes for you. Yeah, we do have one question too. We'll get to that just quickly, and then we will head out. But what are some techniques for setting boundaries with children?
Okay, so can I get more clarification on that question? So boundaries like what? What are you talking about?
Let's see. Whoever asked that question, can you just add some clarification so we can get some more information? Are they misbehaving? Why and where?
In the bedroom, like what kind of boundaries are we talking? If not, I'll do a general answer.
Okay.
Okay, let me start answering it, and
perfect. And then I'm sure they'll hop on. Yeah.
So like anything, so whatever that boundary is, you want them to respect your space, your bedroom, or you want them to not talk back to you, whatever that boundary is. In order to begin that conversation, you have to start with the mirroring. Like whatever boundary they've crossed, like the hair or whatever it is, you have to mirror that using the calm technique exactly the way that I described it. And then you present the problem. But the problem is, I'm an adult and you can't talk to me that way. Or the problem is, this is my bedroom and you just burst in the door and didn't knock. Whatever the boundary is, you present the problem. And then you follow that up with a solution. What could the solution be? Can we work together to come up with a solution that's going to help us so we're not in this situation again? And follow that up with a message of confidence. I believe in you. I know you can do this. I know you're a nicer person than this. I know that you understand boundaries because you understand boundaries at school or you understand boundaries at grandma's house. So I know you can do this. So let's work together. So that's kind of if I were to map it out for you, it would look like that. And the tricky part is everybody's boundaries are different. And sometimes as parents, you have completely different boundaries. So often parents polarize. One is like, oh, he's fine, leave him alone, it's not his fault. And the other one's like, this is ridiculous. This kid's out of control. We got to do something. And you end up polarizing and you end up trying to compensate for what you believe is a weakness in the other one's parenting. Right? And then you end up being a caricature of yourself. So even if you're a single parent, you got to get on board with yourself. And if you're parenting with a spouse or a partner, you've got to find a way to come to the middle. And that's where connected parenting is so amazing. It absolutely requires that you start in the middle, right? You start with that you start with the compassion, that you start with the listening, you start with the creation of safety, with the connecting before correcting. And once that's done, then you set the boundary, then you set or whatever the problem is. The problem is you've got to behave this way or this is going to happen. And then you can come in with the consequences. So the tougher parent has to start out soft, and the softer parent has to eventually get tougher. And then you end up working together, and then you end up complementing each other instead of conflicting with one another. And that's why, and if parents are thinking, oh, I don't think my spouse would do this, it doesn't matter. If you're the only one doing it, it'll still work. It'll help your child be more resistant and more resilient and emotionally organized. So even if the other parent is not doing it at all, it'll still work.
Perfect. Yeah, they said that you totally answered their question on boundaries. So that is great.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, honestly, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. I listened to you and talked to you all day. I love your approach and how mindful you are of every element involved. And I think it's so important. It's really refreshing and definitely the movement moving forward. So I want your program and I don't even have children. I think it's so cool.
It's a gift that you can give yourself. And if you do have children, it's the gift they will give to their children.
100%. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Awesome. Well, I will send out an email with all of Jennifer's information and then attach that. And we'll continue being in contact. Let us know, ladies, keep us updated on how you're doing. And please reach out to Jennifer if you have any questions or you want to chat with her further with you or your partner, and or you also do child therapy as well.
I do.
So that's an option. Yeah. So thanks again. Happy Tuesday and enjoy your evening. Bye.
Bye.
Live from the world headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, this is the news with Rick Sanchez.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. You know, on most days, the news is a combination of good and bad. Today is not one of those days. Economically, markets all over the world still appear to be crashing. Geopolitically, the war in Syria is escalating, and dangerously so, with Turkey, Russia, and Syrian troops facing off. And on the health front, the coronavirus is spreading and on the verge of becoming a global pandemic. All of this today, one day. That's the news. Let's start there with the coronavirus. Here's what you need to know. Japan. Parents were shocked to learn yesterday that schools are going to be shut down. Parts of the country are in a state of emergency. 13 million students are not going to be going to school. And the Summer Olympics, they might be canceled. In the United States, for the first time, a patient has been confirmed with the coronavirus with no known origin. That means this California man did not travel, has not been in contact with anyone known to carry the virus. He's quarantined while the CDC investigates further. Here's an important question. What is causing fears of a pandemic? The fact that many more cases are now being confirmed outside of China. That's why. South Korea, for example, it just announced 571 new cases this morning, bringing its total to 2,337, while China announced 327 new cases and 44 deaths. Among the countries reporting new cases today, France, Germany, Nigeria. However, the big three remain China, Iran, Italy, where emergency measures are now being implemented. Now, all of this is causing a worldwide market plunge, which some are calling a panic. The Dow was down 1,200 points yesterday, and it's looking really bad today. Somewhere pretty much near that vicinity, right? And it's capping probably the worst 4 days that we've seen since the 2008 economic meltdown. In fact, it is. NASDAQ also closed down by considerable amounts. And it's important to note that both European and Asian markets are also plunging as we speak. But maybe the worst news in all of this is something you don't hear a lot about, and that's that the 10-year yield is also at a record low, and that implies the situation is not just tied to the coronavirus, but to other inherent problems in our economies like enormous debt. Where have you heard that before? Now, all of this is happening as Turkey threatens more attacks against Syrian troops. The situation in Idlib province got really dicey yesterday when almost 30 Turkish soldiers were killed in a Syrian attack, possibly coordinated with a Russian airstrike. Uh-oh. Russia appears to be resolute in its position to defend the Syrian government. And Turkey, conversely, feels compelled to attack. That's a dangerous cocktail, folks. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. Now, remember, you can catch all of this information about what's going on regarding the latest on the coronavirus on portable TV, especially our coverage of the virus itself and the latest developments. And you can find it each and every day, 24/7. Just do this. Go to portable TV, click the icon that says tracking coronavirus, right? And there you'll get not just the spin and the politics, but what the real experts are saying and thinking about this situation. You know, as a veteran newsman, I've seen my share of bad news. But I got to tell you, today seems to be bad news coming in droves. Our job is to bring it to you, and that's what we're going to do right here on the News with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it's time to do news again. Okay, here we go. The list of questions we think you'll be asking tomorrow after watching our newscast tonight. We're going to begin with Turkey. Is Turkey ready to ramp up its attacks as the world looks the other way? How is Russia, with its huge border with China, keeping the virus count so low? And will the virus and economic scares be used to diminish our freedoms again? That's a great segment. I guarantee you're going to like it. Stick around. But we're going to begin with the very latest on the stock market and new signs, as we've been reporting this week, that this is not just about the coronavirus. See, here's what might be going on here. There might be some pent-up issues. Debt, interest rates, Fed manipulation, extremely low 10 and 30-year yields that many have been screaming about, but nobody seemed to listen until maybe now. My colleague, Scotty Nell Hughes, is at the CPAC conference, where conservatives meet once a year here in Washington, D.C. Scotty, what are they saying there? How would you gauge the level of concern over what's going on?
Well, it's interesting, Rick. You know, the market's had another devastating day, just like you've pointed out, and it's not hard to find reasons why people are panicking. But people here at CPAC 2020 actually say this is just another day in the president's life and a good reason why we have a businessman in our office.
Facing a pandemic crisis right now, and obviously it's got to be dealt with, but I think the government's doing as best they can, and hopefully find either a cure or a way to mitigate it, and everything will react. Markets go up and down. And this is obviously not a great day for the market unless you're buying stocks. The markets go up and down, and so the economy overall is strong, and the fundamentals of it are strong. So we're continuing to see manufacturing go up, unemployment's down. So as long as the fundamentals stay strong, we're in good shape. And right now, you got the vice president leading the response, coordinating the whole of government. So we're in great shape.
Well, now that Sean Spicer talking exclusively to RT America. And, you know, the economic turmoil is usually a horrible thing for any candidate during a presidential election year, except conservatives are saying, you know what, this is probably a reason why we need more of President Trump's America's First or the Trump strategy. Now, Larry Kudlow and Ivanka Trump just finished wrapping up their economic panel. And while there was very little mentioned about the coronavirus in the current headlines, you know, Larry Kudlow reassured the audience saying, you know what, the virus is not going to tank the American economy. Actually, my biggest fear is socialism. And of course, that has been the rally cry here at CPAC 2020. Ivanka Trump got up there, didn't even really mention the coronavirus, just said that America is leading the globe right now in development, as well as the American and the global enterprise, and said that we are the envy of the world. So a lot of those same talking points, despite the headlines, despite what is actually happening in the markets, are just being said over and over. The question that we're wondering right now, tomorrow, President Trump himself takes center stage. We know he cares about the economy. Is he going to give that same speech that he's been giving, saying, you know, everything is great, everything's wonderful, or is he actually going to go more specific and say, here is what we are doing to make sure that the American economy can live through this virus and that the coronavirus stays outside of our borders? Reporting for the news with Rick Sanchez, live from CPAC 2020, I'm Scotty Nell Hughes.
Thanks so much, Scotty. Appreciate it. So we really have what is a double-pronged lead for you today, because we have the economy, which is in many ways, with the situation with the economy, which is in many ways shaped by the coronavirus. And then there's something going on in Turkey, which could very well be related to this as well. And let me put this all together for you. It's kind of like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. So Turkey has been wanting to attack Syria full bore now, and frankly doesn't seem to give a hoot what Russia has been telling them to do or not to do. This despite the repeated attempts by Russian diplomats, as we reported, even President Vladimir Putin himself, who's tried to cajole and convince President Erdogan to scale back his attacks in conversations that they've had on the phone. But now, with the entire world focused on the coronavirus and the apparent economic crashes that we've been talking about, 4 days now running, Mr. Erdogan appears to be ready to step up, or if nothing else, maybe step on the gas. Some 30 Turkish soldiers were killed yesterday, possibly with the help of a Russian rocket fire, and that has Erdogan making even more threats. All right, joining us now is Michael Malouf, former Pentagon official. Continues to spiral out of control. This thing yesterday with the attack has Erdogan flaming hot, and now the world's looking the other way. Nobody's looking at Syria today.
Well, they will be, because you got the refugee issue that's emerging from this, and Erdogan's trying to make a point with Europe that he's going to start releasing those refugees, because he can't contain another million into Turkey any longer. So it's going to have a bearing. And with the backdrop of the coronavirus, you're moving people, massive numbers of people.
Oh my God, you're right. I hadn't put that together. So what you're saying is he's going to funnel them in the direction he wants to use. You know what he's really doing? Can I say this? He's weaponizing them.
He's weaponizing. Yes, he has. And he's using them as leverage. And this is his plan. That's the key that he has over the Europeans. For the Russian standpoint, Putin and Erdogan continue to talk. They just had a conversation, phone conversation. Yeah. They're going to have new meetings next week. But
it looks like Erdogan's not paying any attention to the Russians.
He is. But from Putin's standpoint, he's using Erdogan to leverage against the EU, European Union, and NATO. And this helps him to a point. As long as Erdogan doesn't kill Russian troops on the ground in Syria, he's okay.
Did Russia's rocket fire kill Turkish troops yesterday?
I'm informed that it was Syrian. Syrian airdrop.
Because there's two stories out there, and one of them is saying that the Syrians did it, obviously, but they used Russian cover.
The Russian and the Turk military coordinate. Look, the Russian military is in full control of what's going on in Syria right now, and as long as Russian troops are not killed, it's okay from the Russian standpoint to tolerate Erdogan, even if he were to continue attacks on the Syrians the way it's looking right now, but only to a point. But he's not. They're not going to take back or recede back from the territory they've taken, and so in effect, Erdogan is limited in his options because he doesn't control the skies. It's a no-fly zone controlled by the Russians.
Right, and that's what you have. You have the Russians with their power and might.
Correct.
You have the Syrians.
Correct.
And you have Turkey at odds with both.
Yeah.
And you have 800,000 refugees, which, as you intimate, he might very well weaponize at a time when the world is worried about strangers coming into their country because of the coronavirus. You've just put it all together for us, Michael, and well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Back on the coronavirus, there's one country that seems to be escaping the coronavirus contagion. And, you know, what's curious is it happens to be in the country that has the longest border with China of all the other countries in the world. We're talking about Russia. Did you know that? So how has Russia been able to keep its numbers so low, or has it even had to do anything? Here's Yulia Shapovalova with this story.
The number of those infected with the new coronavirus has exceeded 83,000 people worldwide, with the largest number of them in China, followed by South Korea. In total, according to the World Health Organization, at present the disease has been detected in 46 countries after several new ones were added in the past 24 hours. Those are Brazil, Georgia, Greece, North Macedonia, Norway, Pakistan, Romania, Lithuania and Belarus. And later it became known that the first case was confirmed in the Netherlands. More than 2,800 people have died. 8,000 patients are in a serious condition. The rest of them, and that's more than 70,000, are either in a stable condition or have recovered. In Italy, there are already 650 cases. 17 people have died. The number of those infected in France has doubled lately. In some places, the situation is close to panic. European regions have seen people sweep away everything from store shelves. In Spain, the demand for medical masks has grown by 8,000%. More people prefer not to appear in public places at all. In Switzerland, the famous Geneva Motor Show has been cancelled. Even the head of Mongolia, who returned from a trip to Beijing, has been isolated from his fellow citizens. At the same time, authorities in Europe are not in a hurry to shut borders between their countries, saying there is no need for it. There are no new cases of the coronavirus in Russia. On February 28th, Russia suspended direct flights with Iran, where about 400 people were reported sick. The land border between Russia and China is closed. A Moscow vice mayor said on Friday that surveillance of passengers from South Korea and Iran will be strengthened at Moscow airports. Starting March the 4th, Russian railways will temporarily cancel trips between Moscow and Nice from the train schedule. This train runs through all of Europe. And Moscow authorities have issued a note for the public on where and how to make tests for the coronavirus. By the way, the infection has been diagnosed in a Russian citizen who arrived in Azerbaijan from Iran. The patient is hospitalized in a stable condition there. 3 people who were previously evacuated from the Diamond Princess liner and whose tests were positive are now being quarantined in Kazan. 2 more foreign nationals have recovered. According to the head of the World Health Organization, Russia, among several other countries, has set an example to other states on how to deal with the coronavirus. That assessment was given at a briefing in Geneva, noting that the main thing is to respond quickly even to the smallest threats of the spread of the infection and take effective measures to contain the disease. And there is a hope those measures will work in the future. Yulia Shapovalova for the news of Rick Sanchez.
Oh, thanks so much, Yulia. We here on the news with Rick Sanchez like to stay ahead of the curve, as we like to say. And knowing that it's at times like these, times of worrisome news, right? Whether it's wars or, in this case, a potential stock market crash, and a potential worldwide pandemic, that is when we believe, as journalists and as citizens, that we probably should be most vigilant about our individual liberties. Why? Because this has happened before. In fact, it's still happening. You know, John Whitehead, he's a civil liberties attorney. He's the president of the Rutherford Institute and the author of Battlefield America, The War on the American People. Now, you don't have to be that old, by the way, Mr. Whitehead, to know that in our last major crisis, the thing called 9/11, somehow we were the ones, not the people who attacked us. We, as Americans, ended up losing many of our freedoms, Patriot Act, etc. Here we are now in a similar situation where we have a potential pandemic, where our privacy is obviously going to be affected. We have a potential stock market crash. Are you as worried about this, and should we be vigilant, and why?
Well, you have to be vigilant because the way the surveillance state operates now, I call us one nation under surveillance, basically. Everything we're doing is being watched. The NSA is downloading 2 billion emails daily. They're watching everything we're doing. Facebook, your photos at DMV are being given over to the government. At least 50% of Americans now are on a facial recognition database. So we're in a mess, you know, and you have the government's paranoid about veterans coming back from overseas. They have a program called Operation Vigilant Eagle. They're watching all types of whatever veterans say on Facebook or their emails, and we defend cases where veterans are arrested for that. But at the Rutherford Institute. But yeah, I think we should really be worried because whether or not it becomes a real, whatever you call, virus or scare, there are people in government that take advantage of it. And what I see in the American government today is there's a bit of paranoia about American citizens and people who are opposed to government. Anybody that says, I don't like the way the government's operating, I don't like the president, I don't like Congress, automatically goes on a watch list. And we've had some cases where, again, the police show up with the Department of Homeland Security and drag people out of their home for doing Facebook posts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard you talk about this, and this is Operation Vigilant Eagle that most people don't know anything about, but I want them to know about it. That's why I'm glad you're here. Tell us about Operation Vigilant Eagle and what it really is.
It's a Department of Homeland Security program, DHS. They're watching returning veterans. Again, one of the classic case we had was with a young Marine named Brandon Robb, who, 26-year-old, decorated Marine, by the way, took weapons away from Al-Qaeda, defused mines for his fellow soldiers, was at his home near Richmond, Virginia, typing one morning after jogging on his home business he was doing. He heard a weird noise outside. He looks out his door, and there's cop cars pulling up outside, and people in black suits with the black ties running toward his home. Comes as a SWAT team and accompanied with federal agents from all the agents, FBI, and they swarmed his home, and he goes, "What's wrong? What did I do?" And he didn't own a weapon, by the way. That was the key. And they said, "We don't like your Facebook post. There's something some of the things you're saying, we're very concerned. Wow. Could you step?" He stepped out. They grabbed him, handcuffed him behind his back like that, slammed him against the fence, cut his back, took him to the police station. He had a 5-minute examination in a jail cell by a psychiatrist. Mr. Robb, Brandon, was he's a 9/11 truther, and the psychiatrist said because he was that, he obviously was mentally ill. He was put in the mental hospital. We had to file a lawsuit to get him out. What was amazing, though, and I found out about this, is that these are called civil commitments. 20,000 alone in Virginia, where he was at. 1.5 million in America, 1.5 million a year people are disappearing into these hospitals because they're arrested for something they might be saying.
But in the pretext,
this is in America.
The pretext is Vigilant Eagle, that they arrest these people for these types of things.
Operation Vigilant Eagle, yeah, they're watching. And again, I have these veterans contact me. Another case we had where a fellow just did a short email to a friend about some exercises, and they show up and they're going to take him out of the country. They said this is a decorated veteran.
And in this country,
across the country.
But the point is, right? In this country, you have a right to be dumb, you have a right to be stupid, and you have a right to be insulting. And nobody has a right to come and take you to prison or jail.
You have a right to say what's on your mind.
To say what you think, as long as you're not. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Good. Hey, listen, we're out of time. Good segment.
We have a First Amendment. It says that. Yes.
Yeah, it certainly does, and I'm glad you're standing up for it. Thank you so much, Mr. Whitehead. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Tonight, there's news on Edgar Allan Poe. Let's lighten things up a little bit, shall we? The name alone conjures up images of darkness because he and his writings were both. He's one of the greatest writers who ever lived, but he was a mess as a human being, suffered from bouts of financial insecurity, heavy drinking, depression. It's always been thought that he killed himself, but now researchers, get this, at the University of Texas, they've concluded a study that says that his death was not a suicide after all. Joining us now, RT America executive producer Samir Shahbaz, who's a bit of a Poe expert in his own right. So, hey, what do you make of this University of Texas finding? What do you think?
I totally agree with them. He wasn't a crazy person. He wasn't a madman. I ask you a question. Okay, his stories seem a little bit crazy, but were his stories crazy because he was a crazy person, crazy writer, or was it because the crowd, the readers, demanded that? That's what they needed.
So he was giving them what they wanted,
absolutely.
right? He's the perfect businessman.
Right, and as far as his drinking problem, or, I mean, substance abuse, I mean, like everybody at that time, and I'm not justifying that, but everybody was doing opium, and he was an artist, and he was hanging out with that crowd. He was a public figure, so occasional drink or two.
So in your research, you found that he was essentially acting the part. In other words, I have to write crazy stuff, so I have to kind of act it out as well in my real life.
And he had to act fast. He was one of the first American writers who actually was making a living selling his novels, selling his poems.
I don't get it. What does that mean?
That means that all the others, I mean, like the romantic writers and poets, most of them were rich and well off. He actually had to earn his bread by selling his stuff, the stuff that he wrote.
That's fascinating. Listen to what you just said. Most of the people that we read, the great, people in their names in literature, they were wealthy enough to do it as a hobby.
To retire for a year in the country. And just occasionally write a line or two.
Big difference, but this guy really had to earn his keep. He was a poor man.
We are talking about the time before copyright, so he was robbed by those publishers. Sometimes he would receive the payment by his books, copies of his books. That's totally unfair.
Now, what little I know tells me that he got married to somebody who was his family?
First cousin, yes.
He married his first cousin. And wasn't she like very young?
Yes.
And didn't he get really depressed when she died?
That actually happened just 2 years before his own death. So, of course, and he had a tragic life. So he was orphaned by 3 years old. Then he had to move to Richmond. His foster family wasn't rich. He went to college, University of Virginia, by the way, had to drop out because of lack of money. His foster mother dies. He is on bad terms with his father. And then the only person in his life is his wife that he loved, apparently, dies too. So, of course, there was substance abuse, there was drinking problems, and maybe he lost his mind at the end of his life.
But the one thing that we can't help but come away with is he may be dead, but he's immortal. People to this day are still talking to him. They're still going to his gravesite to visit. It's an amazing story, and I'm so glad that you brought it to us. Thanks, Samir.
No, thank you for having me.
That's a fun conversation. All right, we go over now to our sports headquarters, or a reasonable facsimile thereof. How's that sound? It's time to do Jock Talk, and Regina's here along with Steve-O to talk about what's going on in the world. Hey, can I top with something weird?
Whatever you want.
I'm hearing the coronavirus could cause the Summer Olympics to be canceled.
Oh, you want to start with that? We can.
Well, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Let's go.
absolutely.
It's like the headline.
This would be the first time it'd be canceled due to a virus. It's been canceled. World War I, World War II did it. They canceled 1940, 1916. But to be canceled by a virus would be a whole precedent we've never seen before in our lifetime at all.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in 2016, the Rio Games were slightly affected. They could have been by the Zika virus, but of course they went on as usual. That wasn't nearly as dangerous as this could possibly be.
But the argument is solid. If at that time when it happens, we still don't have a handle on this, and the last thing we want is for thousands of people to converge in one place, because we've seen what happens on cruise ships, then maybe
it's already a sign, because you have 80,000 volunteers who have been told don't come yet for training. And Japan's like, but we'll still go on as normal. You're like, you're already telling them not to show up. But everything is fine.
Yeah. But it's important to know there is a 3-month window. They have the IOC has till the end of May to make a final decision on whether to cancel it altogether, because now they're saying it will not be moved or postponed. If it doesn't go on as usual, starting in July 24th in Tokyo, that it will be canceled. And actually, you know, we have a quote actually from a senior member of the IOC and former Vice President Dick Pound said, as far as we all know, you're going to be in Tokyo. All indications are at this stage it will be business as usual, so keep focused on your sport and be sure that the IOC is not going to send you into a pandemic situation.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, let's get started with Jock Talk. What do we got first?
All right,
yeah,
an interesting one.
You know, it's a good thing Regina's on today because this involves a very talented athletic wrestler who is a female, and she wasn't wrestling against another female. She actually took out a boy in high school. She
Really?
won the. Well, look at her here. She gets on top of him now and flips him. Watch. Now she becomes the first female wrestler in the history of North Carolina to win a state high school wrestling championship. She took him out. Look at her.
And she's a female, but she's wrestling in the boys classification.
Yes, in high school. She's that good.
You go, girl!
Yeah.
You go, girl!
It's awesome.
I love it. Good for her.
We had a few girls that
Fantastic.
wrestled in high school that I went to, and I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's good
well
for her.
done.
Yeah.
Something
Number 2.
not so awesome, though. The Women's Scottish Soccer Champions Cup is going on. This woman on the opposing team fell down, dislocated her right knee, and decides she wants to pop it back into place herself.
Oh, no.
So the knee comes out, it dislocates to the right.
Oh,
she goes down, and you just see her start pounding the side of her knee to put it back into place on her own. And even close up, it's so much worse. You just see it sticking out. It's awful.
These girls are tough.
No, that's not tough. That's crazy.
Right.
Let the doctor do it, right?
I mean,
She is tough.
Right.
She is tough. I mean, she got back up. She kept playing. So.
It don't get no tougher than that.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Wrong. Yeah.
What you got, Steve?
Okay, so we got March Madness coming up, but you know what? It happened a little earlier this year in a small college. Now, NAIA is a small division for colleges, but let's take a listen. So you think the game's over here, right?
Right.
The announcer spoke too early because look at that. The visiting team just crushed their dreams with that prayer. So the announcer thinks they're going to overtime. 1.6 seconds left on the clock, though. The away team, Taylor University versus Grace College here. Taylor just launched it from look at this. So if you listen to him.
And he's saying the game's over, we won.
He's saying we're going to overtime.
Oh, we're going to
overtime. And then 1.6
No, we're
seconds.
not.
That's March Madness right there in February. I'm ready for
College
that.
basketball doesn't get better than that. We actually have a big match tomorrow night in College Park, Michigan State, Maryland. It's going to be a good one, and you're going to lose, Steve.
Please don't remind me of what Maryland just did a couple of days ago. Thank
We
you
won't
very
talk
much.
about it.
Yeah, I know. Look it up. It has something to do with MINNESOTA. That's our news. Thanks so much for being with us. Thanks, guys. Good stuff. Appreciate it. We'll be coming back at 5 o'clock. We'll see you then. We'll be looking for you. When it'll be time to do news again. We'll see you then.
Morning, guys. Tammy Trayer, TrayerWilderness.com. It's dreary today, so I'm not sure what we're going to get. And I need to very quickly do some personal invitations so that people can be present today. So as you pop on here, and if you're watching the replay, I would greatly love it if you share with me how you're doing and what you are up to in your neck of the woods. Good morning, Jill and Tammy and Chad. Hopefully you had safe travels and good travels last night, Chad. And hope you guys are all doing well. How are you feeling today, Jill? I am quickly sharing this with 2 people so that they are able to get on here and join me. So just give me 2 seconds here as I do that. And send that one. One more. It is raining here. We are in our rainy season right now, and we have had steady, heavy downpours all week long, and it is in our forecast for, I believe, the next 2 weeks. So it is quite crazy. Yes, rain and snow here, dreary. And Jill says, today is a better day. Thank you for asking. Well, sweet friend, you are going to be really excited after I share some of what I'm going to share today. You are one person that comes to mind greatly when I will be sharing this. Well, it is rainy. It's dreary. It's damp. But I'm envisioning and visualizing spring. I've got my nice little white jacket on and some purple colors. And I am ready to embrace spring and hit the mountains. So I'm putting myself in a very different place. Not to mention, you ought to see why. I showed you this last week. It's getting better. It's now organized. And I've got boxes ready to be shipped, and stuff is actually sorted through, so there's hope for me yet. But it's like all around me. So it's quite something, and the house looks the same way. The scaffolding is a permanent structure in my living room and kitchen and dining room. And we are making huge progress, which is so extremely exciting. It's whoever takes this over will have such an awesome, cozy, just such a welcoming home. I am just so very excited. I am anxious to show you guys. I don't know if I will do that today or not. I'm trying to keep these shorter because we've been getting really long, and I know that there are some people that would like to watch and can't because they're too long. That is what my dining room looks like. I am learning to find peace in my mess. I have to, because it's very hard to work in this. I've always expressed to you guys to declutter because it's so refreshing. It removes the weight off your shoulders. It removes a lot of stress that you don't realize is there. And here I sit in this massive bomb. I mean, oh my goodness. It is just a bomb in every room. But I'm holding out. I'm being calm about it. I'm excited because there is so much progress going on, and we're looking at probably about another week and a half, 2 weeks till we have things wrapped up the way we would like to get this listed. So, and in the process, a lot of really awesome things have been happening. Monday was a fabulous, very productive day. We are just embracing life in a different way. And I have some really awesome stuff to share. Saturday, I started a 3-day workshop and program, and I've been talking to you about the things I've been implementing in my life, the MELT method, the Wired for Healing, and I was blessed with the gift that we received that I was able to purchase this 3-day seminar, which I felt God was blessing me with and leading me to. And that was the truth, and it was the answer. This 3-day program was pretty intense, and also very miraculous. I am sitting here, and I don't have to worry about what position I'm in. I don't have to worry about my muscles. I have to be careful how I speak right now, so because I am now on a 6-month journey. Over the last 3 days, I have healed my body. I have no symptoms of my illness at all, which is absolutely amazing. I have my strength. I don't have pain for the first time in a long time. Are you going to add your 2 cents?
I said you're amazing.
Oh, I see. The mountain man is joining, the voice from the curtain. Oh, my word.
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what...
Hang on. There we go. Okay.
It's pretty amazing what she's doing. There's huge differences in how she can act, how she acts, how she moves, how just her body, just being able to lift stuff, do stuff. It's pretty amazing. Makes you think a little bit, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah. That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, thank you for sharing. It is, guys, it's really, really crazy. I am realizing it's just kind of weird because now it's almost natural to be the other way around. Good morning, Jackie and Terry and Charles. It's really quite amazing. Like, it's like now I have to think back to what it was like because all of a sudden all this stuff has changed overnight. I mean, overnight. I woke up the next morning, Sunday morning, and I had no pain. No pain. I actually, like, jumped out of bed, and when I jumped out of bed, I stopped because I haven't been able to do that in... I was from my surgery, I have been struggling for 3 years to regain my health. But I was sick, and having struggles really badly for 5 years prior to that were progressively getting worse. And now I am realizing that there were things. This morning I was able to stretch and move in a way that I haven't been able to do since 2004, because what would happen is when I went in that particular position, like it happened when I was tying my hunting boots, that when I'm real flexible. So I was bending and I was straight down, and all of a sudden my abs would just go into a softball size knot. So I've learned to adjust how I put my boots and my socks on. And this morning, I didn't even think about it. I just went in that position, and there I stood and just started laughing, because I haven't done that in so long. And what I am doing is I am retraining the limbic system of my brain. What happened is, because of all the toxins in my body from the breast implants and the mold, my body has been in a fight and flight trauma loop since. So everything all the stimuli that was causing problems in my body were getting intensified over time. And that's why when 2 weeks ago I was in the toxins and smelling those toxins, that it just was so drastic that I was in bed having to prop up my neck because it wouldn't hold my head up. This is just incredibly intense. And to be able to gain my life back in 3 days is just unstinking real. And you better believe I am going to be shouting this from the mountaintops, because this applies to anybody that has chronic illness, chronic pain. I had multiple chemical sensitivities. I had so many things going on. Lyme disease, anything that triggers struggles in the body, POTS. There's so many different things. My brain is just spinning right now. PTSD, anxiety, depression. These are all a result of the body going into a trauma loop. And in a day, I already saw huge differences. I walked into the bathroom where there was paint opened, and it didn't give me an instant migraine, and it didn't make my face just instantly go red. I can be around those smells now and have different associations with them, because my body is not stuck in a fight and flight loop, and I don't feel like I need to live in a bubble. This is life altering, not only for me, but to know what I can do to help other people. So I am just beyond ecstatic. I am ecstatic because I can now help my guy, and he's not the one doing all the heavy stuff because I can't lift anything. I have gained so much of my strength back in 3 days. It's absolutely unbelievable. So I know that when I hit 50 next year, I am going to be in the best shape I have ever been in. And that's because that's where I'm going to take myself. This is just fabulous and just amazing. And it's just awesome. It's just awesome. Like, every day I am seeing myself do these things. Like, I couldn't even pick up a cast iron skillet for a while. When those symptoms set in a couple weeks ago, I struggled then again to pick up cast iron skillets. It would zap my strength. And when we were building here, I was hoisting 2x8x12s up onto our loft area, our home area. While we were building, I was just chucking them. I couldn't even pick up a cast iron skillet. So this is life altering. And for people like Jill and other people out there that are struggling from PTSD, depression, anxiety, it can be healed. It can be healed. Now, what I need to do is, for the next 6 months, I need to take an hour a day and repetitively keep this brain portion open and keep rebuilding on it, so that I can basically dissolve the other brain path that was stuck in a loop. Now, I have to be careful what I'm talking about. I know this is going to sound really funny, but we are warned not to talk about symptoms, so I'm going to stop at this point, because I can feel the top of my head changing. I know that sounds weird, but I've had a lot of pressure in my head from this illness over the last 3 years, and I feel that setting in right now, so I'm going to stop talking about it. But you're going to hear more from me. I want to share something with you that... Whoop, hang on. I want to share this with you, see if I can add the comment in here. There we go. So this is just amazing, amazing stuff, and I'm going to continue sharing about it, but I've got to find a way to do it that I don't reverse what I've got going on here. Oh, I can't share it. So when I am finished here, I will share several things with you guys. Oh, I see. There we go. All right, maybe now can I share? Aha, I can. Okay, but it won't let me send a picture. Okay, I'll do it when I'm done. So, is that not... Whoop. Oh, great. Now I just turned this... There we go. All right. I'm a mess. I'm a mess, but I'm in a good mess. All right, so Jill says, it is due to decluttering, taking everything apart, sorting, and keeping just a few things. That is a very liberating feeling. You know, that's exactly why my office looks like it does, because I am sorting this again. And the boxes that you saw were boxes that I am gifting other people. And I am to the point now where pretty much everything that I am resorting through, I'm just gifting. Just because it needs to be gone. I want to live a simpler life. Yeah, isn't it incredible, Tammy? I am just so excited. God is just so good and is doing so much in our lives, and I am just so, so excited to be able to share this. Like I said, I got to find a way to be able to do this, that it doesn't affect me. God still does heal and performs miracles. Thank you, Lord. Absolutely, absolutely. And what really excites me, when I share the images later, you'll understand. I'm going to share the devotional. The other image that I'm going to share is what came to me yesterday, and is probably going to be the life journey I'm going to be on, and that is going to be, I mean, I feel like I'm helping people now, but this has just accelerated what I have available to me to help others. My arsenal is just growing. So crazy. That feeling in my head is now going away. That is really weird. But that is what I am changing, is the limbic system and rewiring it, and it can be done. It takes devotion. Those 3 days were very intense. And I recommend that if you do this, I will be sharing more on this. I will probably be doing a webinar on this. I might record all the nitty-gritty and all the details and everything that I shouldn't be talking about one day, and then not talk about it anymore and just replay that over and over again so that I don't harm myself. I'm trying to figure this out. But after 6 months and after I'm fully healed, I can talk about it. It's just getting that loop in place that is permanent and redirecting it. But it's just revolutionary to know. I mean, also, it's really awesome because God's been leading me up, and I've been sharing all this stuff, the new beginnings. Everything that I've been sharing, every little piece and detail was part of my weekend, except it all came together like this. So I have been on the right path. And it's so awesome to see that I have been on this path and that God has been incrementally adding these things to my arsenal. And now I have like the full weaponry in place because I know how to put it together. So, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And to see just, you know, you take so much for granted. I can't talk anymore about that stuff, but I will share later. Amen, Emmanuel, God with us. Yes, exactly. And yes, and welcome back, Chad. So there's, you know, God has designed our bodies in such an amazing, amazing way. And, you know, our scientists are still learning about the bodies and what they are capable of. And, you know, it's just amazing to see what our bodies are capable of, to know how God designed us, to know that God had such an incredible and amazing plan, and how all this just goes together, and how we have the abilities ourselves to go past a lot of modern medicine. You know, I don't need to see a doctor. I don't need to go back for repeat visits. I now have the control within myself based on my devotion to this, and you can be darn sure I'm going to be very devoted. I actually did 2 training reps or sessions, before I did this, because I knew that talking about this would cause me some struggles. So it's just amazing to know that our bodies are able to self-heal, and that we have the abilities within our minds and our spirits and our God-given gifts to be able to do this. I am looking at Mimi's right now. Mimi says, I need prayers. All my guts are infected and inflamed. I'm going to the doctor this afternoon for another exam. I just had one 2 weeks ago. Whatever this is, it just doesn't want to go away and stay gone. Please pray for me that it does go away and stays away. Absolutely, girlfriend. We will keep you in prayers, add you to the prayer list, and I see that Tammy is also saying that she will pray for you. Absolutely. God answers prayers. That's another thing. Down below in our description is a very large list of prayer requests that we have. And I'd like to ask that all you prayer warriors out there, please lift them all in prayer. We have had such fabulous results with our prayers. Charles had his teeth extracted this week and did absolutely fantastic. Actually, that was last week already, wasn't it, Charles? I'm losing my mind. But he is doing fantastic. And yes, it was last Monday. So he didn't have a whole lot of pain and did real well. And he is healing. Mona and Ken are seeing results in their healing. They are starting to be relieved of a lot of the pains they were experiencing and re-strengthening, so that is good. My friend Adrian's 2 children are in need of prayer. One was in the PICU. She's now in the ICU with breathing issues. She was in there. She's very small. I want to say she's 6 or 8 months old. She's precious, and they could use prayer. I know that's very overwhelming. They also have another child that's being diagnosed with an autoimmune illness. So, you know, there's so many people out there that are in need of prayer, and that's where we're going to lead into today too, is learning how to be resilient in life when we are thrown so many different things and so many scary things. So Mimi, I know where you're at. I understand your position, and you can count on our constant prayers. God will answer, and there is so much healing with the Lord. It's just amazing. And you know, sometimes things take time. I will never wish that I didn't go through this experience for many, many reasons. God has been incrementally providing me with answers. Not only that, I have saved, the Mountain Man and I did a video on things back in 2016, and that saved so many lives so far. We've saved well over 30 lives that we know of, and I know God had purpose in everything, and everything we walk through builds us to who we need to become. We become warriors. We become warriors for Him. We become stronger in having a greater inner strength to help pull us through what's ahead at times. And, you know, a lot of people say that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I don't want to discourage you and say that that's not true, but that's not biblical. But what is biblical is that He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. He is always beside us. And He is always there helping us on this journey. And, you know, at times you might feel abandoned, that He's not present, but He is always there. And sometimes the abandonment and the lack of the feeling of presence of God is because He's carrying us, and He's doing a lot more work than you can imagine. So don't ever feel that He is not present, because He is always there. He is always working miracles in the background, things that we will never know or see. He is working in the forefront. He is providing people in our lives to make a difference in our lives, to replace things that may have been lost or removed. you know, he strips us for a reason, and I truly believe that he stripped me of everything. Not that I was never grateful for it all, because I don't have the mentality to question why. I don't have the mentality to blame. I just roll with it, and I'm grateful for the circumstances, and I keep my eyes open to see what he's teaching me. But I wasn't always like that. So it's a place of growth. So as we go through these things, this is what can happen. This is where you come to. And it is such a wholesome and amazing place. So when you guys come to me in your situations, I hope and pray that you never feel discredited by what I share, or that you are lesser of a person, or that you are in a lesser of a place. I want you to strongly want what I have. I want you to feel me sharing my knowledge of pulling, encouraging you to pull into God, encouraging you to read the Word, encouraging you to step up your walk, because through that for myself, I've come to this place. And this place that I am in is just so amazing, and it is contagious, because the mountain man wanted it too. We both wanted a place of peace. We both wanted a place of joy and happiness through this extreme blusterous tornado we've got going on through our home. And we found that place. We found that place, and together it's really awesome when you have somebody that you can do it together with, whether that accountability partner is a friend, is a sister, is a brother, is a wife, is a child. My mountain boy has often been my partner in crime. He is a great partner in crime. He and I think a lot alike, and personalities and mannerisms and makeup are very much the same. So having those partners in crime when you're either increasing your walk with God, embracing a new health issue, wanting more happiness and joy in your life, having an accountability partner is really important. And I feel that this is something that I hope you feel I'm offering to you when you come and join me on Wednesdays, because I want you to feel like I am your accountability partner, because we are going to succeed. We are going to win. Whatever our struggles are, whatever we are individually walking out, we are going to do this together. And I hope that you guys are feeling this. I hope, give me some hearts, because that is what this is all about. And we also have the community that we've started. Many of you are starting to come over there and join, and I am so excited, because at this point that is going to start taking off in a tremendous way. I've got so much to share, and so much that you are going to see through these revelations, and I'm thankful that you guys have joined me. So if you haven't joined me over there, join us at TrayerWilderness.com/community. And trust me, it will be a very wholesome place. If you think this is wholesome and you are gaining from it, the wholesomeness of our community is that it's a daily thing, that we can come there daily, not just on Wednesdays. Thank you for the hearts. I am glad to know that you guys are feeling this as a place where you can come, you can commune, that you have an accountability partner no matter what it is we're talking about, no matter what it is we are working through, no matter what it is that we are overcoming. We are doing this together. And what I am sharing with you, I feel, is God-given every week. And I think it's things that we can grow together in, that these are things that are going to make our lives more wholesome, where we will find more happiness, and it is where I am inspiring positive change. That's the goal. That is the goal, is to inspire positive change, regardless what area of your life it's in. And really, guys, I believe that everything I've been teaching and sharing this year is stuff that all trickles down and all kind of plays a role. It all morphs together, and it might be related to health, but it falls into life. And man, no matter what whirlwind you have going on, we have the ability to be greater than we feel or think. It's a truth. It's an absolute truth. That is the beauty of the body and the way we were designed. We were God designed to be able to be greater than what we feel and what we think. And that's by visualization. That is by will. That is by desire. And by constant repetition of making these things happen. What have I been talking about all year? About making new habits. I'm going to share something with you. This was really awesome to me and made me just absolutely laugh. Part of my training this weekend was doing, well, there's two things that you will find extremely humorous. All right, in the training, two of the things you want to do is create constant change in your life. Do new things. You know, start painting, start drawing, start writing with your left hand. I've always had the desire to be able to write with my left hand. I had to at one point because I broke my right arm in 3rd grade, and I did have to do it, but then I stepped away from doing it. And when she shared in the training this weekend to start something new, I've already started how many new things this year. So I just instantly went to, well, she also said about eating your meal with the non-dominant hand and doing things different, like when you put on your jeans. I never even thought about that. When I put my jeans on, I always put my right leg in first. Have you ever thought about that? It's just all automatic. That's what I'm reprogramming. It's all that subconscious automatic that my body was doing behind my back. I'm retraining that. So I'm putting my left leg in my pants first, and I'm eating with my left hand, which is really difficult because my left hand in and of itself is retarded. Plain and simple. It has no control and no manners whatsoever. So anyway, I'm now writing with my left hand in my journal, which it's interesting. It's very interesting. Yes, exactly. It's called being mindful, Jill, and that's exactly it. Okay, the other thing is, she said to move things around in your home constantly to give it a feeling of newness. We just busted. I mean, my house, I've got crap stuff everywhere. My kitchen's in my dining room or in my living room or in the Mountain Boy's bedroom. I mean, we got stuff everywhere. So I'm already ahead of the game. So it was just really funny. But what I've been teaching all year long is what I was shared with me over these last 3 days, but showed me how to put it all into place in a better, more way to perform more growth, which I will be sharing with you. But it's just fun. And now, not only, I know I brought it over here, not only is my journal my daily log, but I'm now recording all the changes that I'm experiencing in my life. And I'm writing in my journal 10 times a day what I aspire to be. And I'm writing with my left hand. So it just gives me great joy to be doing these daily steps and to know what has just transpired and what I am putting in place long term. It is just awesome. It is absolutely awesome. Yeah, you have to try it. It's just fun. It's, you know, and that's the thing. In order to be mindful and to make positive changes in the brain, the more you are in a joyful and happy state, the more the body opens up to this stuff. The more you laugh that you cry, the more silly and fun you are in your day-to-day, which is how we should be living anyway, is what encourages the brain to produce the hormones that we need to thrive. We need to get ourselves out of that fight and flight that we are constantly in because our environment or our society or our constant surroundings are pulling us into that place. We have the ability to pull ourselves out of that place. We also have the ability to change where we are. So just always remember that we have the ability to change anything. Anything. And that's what I've been encouraging this year. And I hope you guys are gaining from what I'm sharing. And like I said, I'm going to try to keep this not as long today because I want people to be able to listen in. The one a couple weeks ago was 2 hours long. That was insane, but we were talking together and we were sharing a lot of stuff, and it was really powerful. So I don't regret it at all, but I am going to pull us back in here. I want to share this with you because I thought this was extremely powerful. This is ways to develop resilience. This was Proverbs 24:16. Though a righteous man falls, he rises again. These are such wise words, and I am going to share the image later. Be sure to save it on your phone or print it out, because this is one of those things that would be really good to carry in your Bible, to be able to review on a regular basis, and fall back on. So here we go. Like any skill, mental, emotional, and spiritual resilience can be learned. Here's how. 1. Redefine setbacks as the gateway to something greater. 2. Remember, successful people don't just face adversity, they embrace it. 3. Tune out the critics and focus on doing your best. 4. Wake up every day, remembering that prayer and gratitude create a fertile environment for faith. Very much. I am shaking my head to all of these, and I hope that you have seen me being an example of these. And I am not tooting my horn. I am saying that because I am following God's will with my whole heart in everything I do, because I want to be a light, and that is important. And I feel that we have the ability to change not only our lives, but the lives of others by walking the walk and not just talking the talk. So that's what I mean by that. 5, increase your faith talk when you're afraid. Amen. 6, learn from failure and remember the many times you've succeeded. 7, visualize victory before going into battle. 8, refuse to dwell on the past or worry about the future. Today is where you have the most influence. 9, identify a solution instead of complaining. Exactly. And it's okay to state facts. Facts are facts. And that is important because sometimes we need to express ourselves. But just be careful not falling into the complaining. 10, replace self-doubt with faith talk. 11, when things look hopeless, remember with God all things are possible. That is huge. That's Mark 10:27, as well as Matthew 19:26. 12, when you feel alone, think of all those who have helped you and who love and support you. 13, pray for guidance when you're in over your head. 14, rest when you're tired, but don't give up. Finish strong in everything you do. We shared that last week. We were tired, but we kept on keeping on. And here we are, and look what we're celebrating. I lost my place. Okay, 15, remember you can do all things through Christ when you think you can't. And that's Philippians 4:13. 16, recognize what you can't control. Focus on what you can and surrender the rest to God. 17, exercise physically to give yourself a sense of control and to fight depression. 18, laugh to reduce stress, strengthen your immune system, and improve arterial blood flow. 19, be grateful. Research shows that people who send a letter or email of thanks to somebody who helped them stayed in a better mood for up to a month. You've heard me share a lot of these independently. You've heard me talk about these things. There they are, all in one place. And I want to share something really awesome. I don't think Kelly's on here today. I know her life is pretty crazy. I got this in the mail from Kelly. And what's really funny, I got this yesterday. And she mentioned that she and her family have been praying for my complete healing. And that's what this was about. And here I am, symptom free. God is good. God is so good. You guys are going to see me in all kinds of places now. Top of the mountains, I'm telling you. Top of the mountain, I get a signal. I might be able to go live.
And Miss Tammy sent me a beautiful letter. And, you know, they both came yesterday. They were both very timely. And they both gave me great joy. And it is amazing how God puts amazing people in our path and puts in our path just what we need to be resilient, to regrow, to rebuild, to be renewed. So I've been talking about new beginnings all year long. Now we're going to start talking, and you will chuckle when you see the image I share. These are new beginnings, and these are new normals. These are new normals. This is my new normal. You better believe I am celebrating my new normal. And my new normal is going to change every day because I am going to make an extreme effort. And I'm going to be very dedicated and devoted to my training, to my new normal, to my new life, to life itself. And you know that my new beginnings, my new normal, and my life start with God. And if you do not have God in your life and you are watching this, I want to read something to you, and I want to show you how easy it is for you to get to know Jesus. You're going to need to bear with me, though. I need to go to the right place to share that with you. I thought I was, but I am not. So bear with me here, because this is important stuff, too. Okay, here we go. Wanting to know Jesus is something that makes a lot of people curious and fearful, but it's something that's really simple. In the Bible, it states very clearly in Romans 10, 9 through 11, and also 13. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. As the scripture tells us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. All you need to do is ask God to forgive your sins and accept him into your heart. It's that simple. And trust me, I could not and I will not live my life without him. I couldn't imagine my life without him. It is amazing when you have God in your life. That does not mean that you will have, a life full of roses and chocolates and cherries. You're going to have hardships. You're going to have struggles, but you have the best person in your court to help you through those struggles, and you will see his presence through the storm. I've shared so many blessings and so many miracles with you on how God is just tremendously working in our lives and how he is giving us everything we need and how we have had a roof over our head and have progressed through this struggle. And it is just amazing. And it's amazing having those wholesome people in your life as you go through this journey and as you go through your struggles. Struggles aren't meant to be gone through alone. You always have God, and it's always important to have good Christian people in your life that you can count on to help you through your struggles, and to be bold enough to ask for help. Asking for help is not a weakness. Remember that. Asking for help is a strength. It's an inner strength of being willing to know that you are in a weak place and you need help. It is a strong thing to ask for help. So when you guys ask for prayer like Mimi did here today, that is huge. Charles has asked for prayer here. We've all asked for prayer in this video, in these live videos. And it is a powerful thing. And the other powerful thing is to know that you've got everybody else in your court praying for you and supporting you. So I hope you guys find great knowledge, inspiration, encouragement to make positive changes in your life when you are watching these videos. I hope that you feel loved and a part of a community that is accepting, and know that I won't tolerate anything less, because the world is that way. We need a place where we can come and feel comfortable, and that's what I want here, and that's what our community is about. And I will be sharing more information, more links and everything on what I am doing here so that I can be a light to others. But if you know people that are dealing with chronic pain, chronic illness, chronic fatigue, autoimmune disorders, POTS, irritable bowel syndrome, depression, anxiety, PTSD, have them reach out to me at survive@trayerwilderness.com, because what they have and what they are living, the nightmare they are living right now, can be changed. It can be changed. It can be removed. In the name of Jesus, it can be removed. And I want you to know something. You know, by what I am doing, I am not discrediting the power of Jesus. I am promoting the fact that God has given us a body that we have the ability to tap into and to change, and that God will work with us and help us. Not everybody has results in 3 days and has complete removal of symptoms. There are many, but it's not always a common thing. But I truly believe that because my trust is in God and that He provided me with this divine implant of information and that I learned these abilities, that He is healing me like He is. So I just want to encourage you guys to embrace life. Be resilient. If you are struggling in life, you're not alone, but you have tools to be resilient. I want to encourage something else. I want to encourage you. I talk about Evernote all the time. Evernote has 4,000 some notes in here. I use it for everything. And I use my journal a lot for this too. But I want to encourage you to create a note in Evernote or notes in Evernote that have Bible verses for different topics, for peace, for grace, for struggles, for money, for illness, whatever you need. When you're worn and tired, to gain strength from God, you know. And what's encouraging me to tell you this is because last week when we were just so burned out. We were physically and mentally burned out. I mean, we have just been pushing for 3 years, and we've been pushing really hard right now for 3 months. And it's okay. You're gonna get weary. You're gonna get tired. But we have the blessing of God and His Word to pull us back out of these places. And you know, when you're in that place, sometimes you can't remember all the references. But if you have them pre-recorded and you can go to those references and read over those things that you know are going to help you, those references of God's Word that's going to help you, it's huge. So I want to encourage that. If you're a pencil and paper person, create a notebook or create 3x5 cards, okay? But get yourself an archive of references to God's Word that you can quickly go to in a glance, okay? And if you want to use Evernote, it's a free application. It syncs between laptop, desktop, smartphones, iJiggers, and it's very handy. I use it everywhere I go. So, and it was my brain for the longest time. So you can go to trayerwilderness.com/Evernote and sign up there. Now, Terry, I see, has something to say here. I need prayers for a good appointment on Thursday. I have to go see the radiologist to find out what is going on with my PSA blood count. Please let it be negative again and not let the cancer come back. God bless you all. Terry, you can count on our prayers. You've had our daily prayers, and you will be listed in today's, as well as Mimi, in the prayer request that I will be listing for this week. So you will have many, many prayer warriors, and God is the healer. The enemy is the culprit of confusion. So we are just going to believe that the PSA results that you had were a result of the enemy causing confusion, and that the good Lord is healing you and you are fine. So yes, you can count on our prayers. Does anybody else need prayers today? And anybody that's watching this on the replay or watching this on YouTube, please don't hesitate to comment or email me at survive@trayerwilderness.com or personal message, because, and you don't have to share the details of your prayer request. Sometimes the details are personal, very personal. You don't have to share that. You just need to let us know that you need prayer, okay? Tammy, I saw, just posted hers too, and yes, you betcha. Traveling with my daughter and her husband and grandson this weekend to see my mom and my sister and her family. Prayers for safe travels would be appreciated. Absolutely. You got that, and they will be added to the request this week as well. And Kelly and Courtney, her daughter, will be traveling over Easter weekend to Arizona to have her MRI and tumor rechecked again. And again, we are praying that there is no tumor and that God has removed that small piece of tumor that was left and that was inoperable. Hey, Paul, glad to have you joining me. So if you guys have prayer requests, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments. If you know of people that are in need of prayer, Diana, if you watch this later, can you give us an update on Martin? Martin had a heart attack several weeks back, and he ended up in a coma. He was starting to react to stimuli, so I have been saying all along that Martin is in a coma for healing, and that when he wakes up, he will be completely healed. So, guys, I'm going to end this now. I will share the images below and some links later, but I appreciate you following me. I appreciate you being here and taking time out of your day. And we are going to continue on this journey this year every Wednesday with true devotion to making positive changes in our lives. And if you are new to watching these videos, in the archives of the videos here on Trayer Wilderness, you will find all of our Wednesday videos from the beginning of the year. You will also find a playlist on our YouTube channel by going to trayerwilderness.com/YouTube, and you can rewatch these at any given time. If any of these resonate with you, you can share them. If you share these live videos, it helps get people involved and aware that they are happening every Wednesday. So keep that in mind also. And amen, Chad. Chad said Jesus is Lord, and it is so true. I'd like to ask you guys too to keep Chad in your prayers. He's muscling a lot of things right now and getting his new business up and running. So that is Vandal Services in Utah too. That is a large equipment, so I'm going to give you a little shout out there. But just, we all need prayer. We all need prayer. We are all surfing oddities. We are all surfing things. But those of you that have specifically asked for prayer, you can count on them. But I'm going to say a prayer for us right now and get you guys back to your day. And look at this. I do not have to sit in a special position. I don't have any pain. I don't have any struggles. I don't have any symptoms. God is good. God is good. And I hope that when this rain passes, I can do a live video from the top of the mountain somewhere. That's the plan. So here we go. Papa, I just thank you for your love and your blessings and your gracious hand in our lives. I thank you for all these beautiful people that join me, for your love and your mercies and how you work in each of our lives, how you work through me and give me the words every Wednesday to share, to invite positive change in everybody's lives, to help them pull closer to you. And Lord, I just ask that you be with Mimi, help her to get answers on her stomach, and better yet, just heal her. Lord, put your healing hand on her and give her peace with that. Be with Terry and just allow the doctors to shake their heads in confusion that he is healed and his results come back very positively and very encouraging for him. And just be with Terry and his wife. Continue to strengthen their bond and their growth there. And be with Chad and be with Tammy. Help her and her family as they travel. Just keep your
hedge of protection over them, and be with Kelly and Courtney as they travel also. And just be with Mona and Ken and Pat Kenny and all of those on our prayer list. And just thank you, more than anything, thank you for what you've done in each of our lives and how you are working and how you are visible in everything that we do, and how you show yourself in our lives daily. Just help everybody to remember to focus on the gratitude in their lives and to write 3 to 5 things down a day that they are grateful for, because that's you shining through. And I just thank you for what you're going to do in our lives and how you are going to use each and every one of us in your kingdom. And I just ask that you give everyone present and everyone watching the replay strength to go about their days, give them a peace, knowing that you are present, and just may they bless others in their journey. And I just thank you for all that you're going to do, all that you do, and all that you have done. And I ask all of this in Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen. Okay, guys. I just thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy days to be present and to be here. This is really crazy, but I am noticing that my eyes are getting better and that my glasses are making my vision fuzzy. So it's just amazing. God is able to do so much in our lives. Please don't discredit him. Please don't feel that he's not present. And just gain encouragement from these moments that we have together, because God is working in each of us if we are willing to keep our eyes open and focus on him rather than our struggles. So hang in there. We are praying for each of you, and just I hope you were blessed today by what I shared, and I just encourage you to be resilient in life, not just in your struggles, but just in life in general. Be resilient and walk with integrity and be a light to others. That is our job, and the more we are a light, the more we are reaching more people for him. So guys, have a fantastic day. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Again, join us in our community at TryOurWilderness.com/community. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. God bless, guys.